You're not allowed to applaud yet. You get me 3 times this afternoon. So save the applause for later, especially since this first time you get me is just for housekeeping purposes. The real welcome comes after the next short film. There is no fire drill booked for today, which means if you hear one, it's real, and marshals will show you out of the Marshall building. This is being recorded, and there are photographers. And there is a hashtag, which is 100X Summit Day, for those of you who want to tell others what you're doing and where you are. Next up, a very short film, after which I will be back. We have this notion of impact unicorns. A unicorn in the commercial world is a company with $1 billion valuation. We think that there are organizations capable of touching, improving, changing billions of lives, and that's what we're looking for.
Today, one of the greatest injustices is that a huge number of children in the world don't have access to education that helps them achieve their full potential.
The United States incarcerates more people than any other country in the world per capita. There's 2.3 million people incarcerated with an 83% recidivism rate.
When we were struggling and working with the healthcare providers, especially in government hospitals, from the dispensary to the district hospitals, there were different challenges, and it took time to actually work with individual facilities to get the feedback.
What we've been seeing is enormous amounts of resources going towards for-profit ventures, for whom impact is generally a side consideration or not a consideration at all. So what we're trying to do here is actually bring the best of the accelerator and investment world to the impact world, and creating new resources or new channels for capital to flow to social ventures.
If we can get kids to learn while really having fun, we think that the world will be a much better place.
We run technology education programs to help incarcerated students learn how to code. And then we run employment training programs where then we take people that have finished those programs and put them to work.
We saw that mobile phones, especially SMS, non-smartphones, is the best way. And in Tanzania, over 85% of the people who are seeking healthcare have an access of the phone.
The program offers 12 weeks of strategic support to these ventures, and that can take the form of peer-to-peer learning sessions, expert sessions. We also bring in social unicorn founders to come speak to the cohort and share their scaling experiences. And we foster a community of mentors, experts, connectors that can help the founders. One of the big advantages that we have is that we are based at the London School of Economics, which is a hub for research, for evidence, for understanding the cause of things. And also it gives us access to an incredible network of social unicorn founders who have done this before, of philanthropists who are looking to support such solutions, and of impact leaders who are the best connectors and sources of insights that these social ventures can look for.
In late 2015, early 2016, the Marshall Institute had 2 founders, one of whom is here tonight, Tom Hughes-Hallett, and 1 full-time member of staff who isn't here, Wiebke Wenzel, and a lease on 5 Lincoln's Inn Fields, which is a house just across the fields over there. In 2022, 100X had 2 founders, half a member of staff, who's sitting over there somewhere, Amelia Bradley, and this magnificent building. And getting from 2016 to 2023 wouldn't have been possible without the amazing support of our school. The LSE is the home of the Found cause, and we're very proud indeed to be here today. Today bills itself as a summit, and believe me, it feels as though we've had to climb to get here. But it's not the summit. It's a hill from which we glimpse the summit. somewhere in the near distance, close enough to be within reach. And the summit is the impact unicorn. It's a good strapline, but what does it mean? We know there are problems worth solving, from education to agriculture, from resource security to public health and personal safety. We know that there are amazing people working hard to find solutions for those problems. And we know that there's money seeking more than commercial return. And we know some of the things that work better than some of the other things, because the world has been trying this for a long time. Okay? We know some of the things that work. We don't know all of the things that work, but we know some of the things that work. Wouldn't it be great if we could lavish those solutions with all the research, money, intelligence, connections, fame, and support that they deserve? The commercial sector knows really well how to do this. If something is working, it is very skilled at doubling down and making it work better, faster, for more people. We are not. Okay? So we think it's worth trying to prove that it can be done for the social sector. And it's audacious, but we think it's worth trying. And we're very grateful to you all here today for supporting our experiment. And in particular, we're grateful to the inaugural cohort of 100X Ventures, from whom you'll hear in a minute. And I really hope you're inspired to join them in accelerating their impact. I've found them to be, since I met them 3 or 4 months ago, astonishingly, breathtakingly ambitious and humblingly humble and experimental and focused. And that's pretty much a recipe, in my view, for success. So today is about supporting them, and I'm very pleased that you're here with us. If you're here, it's because you're part of the impact revolution. Whether you grant, whether you invest, whether you do research, whether you're an innovator or an entrepreneur, you're very welcome. And I thank you for being part of the world's fastest growing social movement, the movement for sustainable, equitable impact and innovation. And in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Nell, who's the head of our program for 100X, who you saw in the film just now, who will introduce us to each of the founders and their organizations. Before I do that, look in your booklet and find a QR code. And scan that QR code, because that will tell you instantly how, if you wish to make connections to any of the ventures you're about to hear from. Nell.
Thank you so much, Stefan, and it's a great pleasure to introduce the ventures to you today. We just thought we'd say a few words to tell you why we as 100X believe in them, why we believe in their ambition, their vision, their models for scale, and why you should too. So the first venture I'll introduce today is Labia, and welcoming Richa and Vedant to the LSE and to the stage. Labia is working to transform the impact that schools can have on children's well-being. It was born out of necessity, realizing that millions of children come to school burdened by harsh realities of their lives and unable to learn. And at 100X, we believe that their vision is correct, that schools can do more than teaching numbers and letters, that it can really have an impact on the well-being and therefore the whole life of children worldwide. So we are true believers in Labia. And what we really admire and truly value at Labia is their rigor. They have embarked with JPAL on the largest randomized control trial to explore mental health and well-being, which hasn't been easy, which is why there's giggles. It's a hard thing, but it's a worthwhile cause, and that's something we really admire. And finally, what we really love and admire about Labia is their ambition to do more, to have more impact than what they can do with their own reach, their own capacity. So they're really growing the pie for the whole ecosystem. They're advocating for change, they're advocating for more space for social and emotional learning, and we believe that that is what will be the catalyst for change. So they're not just a solution, they are a solution, but they're a true catalyst in this space. So please join me in welcoming Richa to the stage.
All right, no pressure. Welcome to the first pitch of 100X ever. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. We're extremely grateful, and please hold your attention for all 8 of us and encourage us throughout. But yes, I do need some more encouragement for my first pitch. Good afternoon. My name is Richa. I'm one of the co-founders at Labhya, and we are relentless about vulnerable children learning in India. And before we move on, I invite all of you to gently close your eyes and just listen to the audio I'm about to share with you intently. You may open your eyes. This is the reality of more than 190 million vulnerable children in India today. 190 million children in India today go to public schools, and most of our children experience all types of abuse, extreme violence inside their homes and also in their communities, shame because of where they come from, disempowerment just in general, and also abject and severe poverty. Most of the children who go to public schools in India come from a household income of less than £3 a day. And our children are walking into public schools every day with a huge baggage of hopelessness and vulnerability, where the odds are stacked against them. This ensures that our children are less likely to pursue higher education, have decreased chances at employability, and have deteriorating mental health as they grow up. And in summary, children in public schools in India lack the essential skills required to sit in the classroom and learn. And there is an urgent crisis in India right now, where 1 in 5 children are dropping out of school before completion. Over 400 young people die by suicide every single day, and those are just the reported numbers. And almost 50% of the new workforce India deploys every year is unemployable. But this can be reversed and solved through social and emotional learning and international education best practice. In fact, studies by Columbia and University of Pennsylvania prove that every dollar invested in children's well-being yields a return of $11 in the form of health, employment, and education outcomes. So if we know the solution, why does the problem still exist? Well, when we spoke with our 3 main stakeholders, governments, teachers, and students, we understood that everyone wants children to learn better, everyone wants children to be happier, everyone wants children to be better citizens. And while there's a clear alignment of interest, there is a clear expertise gap at the teacher and student level to solve this problem. And so we at Labhya partner with Indian state governments to help them implement a daily social emotional learning class. So just like you would have a math, science, or English class, our children have a daily well-being class that they experience. And we do this in all public schools of the state every single day. Labhya impacts 2.4 million children every day today. And interestingly, through our government partners, we have mobilized $100 million per state per year towards children's well-being. 150,000 teachers are teaching this class every single day. And all in all, we have mobilized about $1 billion in the form of time and resources through our government partners towards children's well-being. But there is more to go. And there is more to the work that we do. We have experienced stories of change from our teachers who have become facilitators from teachers. We've experienced stories of joy, of resilience, of hope for our children and hope for the world. But coming down to the numbers, which some of you might be more interested in, Boston Consulting Group recently did an external evaluation on our work, and I'm glad to say we passed with flying colors. We saw that 87% of our teachers reported positive shifts and tangible shifts in behavior because of our program, and we saw increase in academic learning outcomes and attendance because of our program. We're also grateful to be supported by Selena Gomez as their first grantees in Asia, making way for many more. Our programs have been visited by the former First Lady of the United States, launched by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and we are grateful to be recognized as one of the most impactful and scalable well-being interventions in the world by Lego Foundation. And this is the A-team behind all the magic. I'm Richa. I'm one of the co-founders, as you know. I'm a teacher turned entrepreneur, went to Harvard Graduate School of Education, serve on UNICEF India as a board member, and I also work with the UN Secretary General as one of the 17 leaders for the Sustainable Development Goals. My co-founder, Vedant, who's right at the back in the purple kurta, is a DRK entrepreneur, the Commonwealth Youth Awardee, and Malika, who's also here, is a chartered accountant, worked at KPMG and the US State Department. And beyond the three of us, we have an army of more than 150 people who are not just passionate and skilled, but also very proximate to the problem that we are solving today. And we're extremely grateful to 100X for bringing us today here and giving us this space, and also to all the partners who have supported us globally to build this movement of children's well-being globally. And many of them are doing this for the very first time, are investing in children's well-being for the very, very first time. Our audacious goal is to impact 30 million children by 2030. And that's a huge, huge, huge goal. And to reach there, we need 3 audacious leaps. Very simple. The first is the leap of evidence to prove rigorously that, quite simply, when children are regulated, they learn better. The second is the leap of systemic scaling to partner with more state governments and encourage them to scale our program. And the third is to raise catalytic capital to ensure that this happens beyond us and on a global scale. And that's us in summary. We institutionalize well-being programs in governments. We work with 2.4 million children. We are on a pathway to work with 30 million children by 2030. And to do that, in the next 2 years, we're looking to mobilize $7 million in grant funding to ensure that we're able to have the right step to our start. And so, as Labhya, we are building the world's largest, biggest global movement for children's well-being, and I sincerely invite each and every one of you to take a step and join us. Thank you. Thank you. That was easy. And one last thing, before you leave today, please grab one of our reflection journals from the back for one of your loved ones. We'd be happy to share them with you. Thank you. Nell.
Thank you so much, Richa, for presenting this amazing story. And up next, I'd love to introduce the wonderful Helga and Simon from Afya Pamoja. Afya Pamoja is working to reshape the healthcare sector in Tanzania with citizens and with the government. And what really sets them apart and what we're drawn to at 100X is their commitment to democratic innovation. So what they're building is a feedback loop that makes sure that the healthcare system is adaptive, is responsive, and truly serves the needs of the population that they intend to help. And we know that this works. Studies have shown how integrating patient feedback and data at the heart of healthcare solutions can have a drastic outcome and positive outcome on well-being and lives. So we see Afya Pamoja as the organization that can bring the infrastructure, the mechanism for governments to make better investments in their people. And they're on a path for scale. So they've already partnered with the Tanzanian government. They have plans to roll out their platform nationally and hopefully one day beyond the Tanzanian borders as well. And we think that they can be the foundation that basically helps reshape the healthcare sector, starting with the citizen's voice at the heart of the solution. So please join me in welcoming Helga to the stage.
Thank you, Nell. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. So, my name is Helga. I've been entrusted by my fellow co-founder, Simon, please wave, to tell you more about Afya Pamoja. Afya Pamoja is a Swahili phrase, which means health together. And our vision is actually having the voices of the citizen at the heart of decision-making in health. So our mission right now, together with the government of Tanzania, is creating a platform that actually provides the solution in healthcare system with the voices in a digital platform. So by raise of hands, who likes receiving feedback? Nice, thank you. And who believes that feedback builds trust in the relationship? Nice. And who believes that it's important in improving the performance and accountability? It's a good crowd. Thank you. So most of us agree, which is very nice, but not everyone is comfortable with receiving feedback. Somebody told me a few days ago it's a necessary evil, feedback. And think of the healthcare system whereby the feedback is important to healthcare providers, and it can build trust around us, and there can be an improvement. And that's what we're trying to do. So imagine for a moment, we're all human beings. Sometimes we might need healthcare services. You're visiting a doctor or a nurse, and you're waiting for over 3 hours to see this doctor. And as you get to meet the doctor, there's no privacy to tell him or her what you really feel, because there are still other people outside listening to your conversation. And as you're trying to have the physical examination, the bed sheets are not clean. The window is actually open. And this is the real life of most of the people. So it's different because you're not able to speak more of the clinical setup of the disease, because that is more important to tell the doctor rather than the other areas. But it's very important for a person because they have to be comfortable, they have to feel safe. And this is what encourages more people to seek help in the healthcare facilities. And as healthcare provider, you want people to come, but people do not come to the health facilities because of such situations. And that's where we get to see the importance of feedback in the healthcare system. And it gets to be a vital tool because you get to have the people trust you and receive the services with dignity. And as a medical doctor and public health professional, I worked in public-private facilities. And in the last role I had, I worked in HIV/AIDS prevention program. And my role was making sure that people living with HIV come to receive the services, antiretroviral therapy. It's a continuous service.
And the struggle was, how do I get the experiences? How do I present their struggles to the central system so that we improve the services, we make sure they come comfortably? And would get multiple feedback with some healthcare providers and healthcare managers, longer waiting time, experiencing stigma. I'm not bedridden, so I cannot wait 3 hours for a drug refill. So these were the things we were struggling and would solve per facility, per patient, per council, per region. And the struggle was, how best can we do it systematically and solve this? Because at a small level, you'd see the changes that you had, because these things you not think about it. So, this is the problem we're trying to solve. In Tanzania, this is the box of feedback. It's written Sanduku la Maoni. And many such boxes exist in the hospitals. They might be outside the doctor's room. They might be hard to reach. But also sometimes trash is kept in there. So, for the healthcare providers to do this, what would it look like for the citizens to easily provide feedback? And what would it look like if healthcare providers could access real-time insights on service of quality? And at Afya Pamoja, together with the government of Tanzania, receive that we can improve the healthcare system in partnership by making sure that the patient feedback is part of decision-making. And so what does it look like for the citizens who use our services? And our solution is actually replacing the boxes as well as the pen and paper with mobile phones. And in close partnership with the government, we have created some questions, SMS-based questions, which are actually in Swahili. They're very short, and the questions are actually requiring the experiences, like, did you provide consent before getting the physical examination? Was there water in the labor ward? And these such questions get to provide the experiences of people who use the services at the facility. And to date, we have scaled this platform in over 135 facilities in Tanzania, and we have received feedback from over 5,000 clients. And from these users that we have served, we have received the feedback that there has been an increase in trust to the services by 71%. And there have been an increase of 5% of mothers giving birth at the health facility. And this is a big win for us because there has been a high rate of maternal and child mortality rate in Tanzania because of not giving birth at the health facilities. I want to share some of the experiences. So last time I went to the facility, I had a chat with the mothers because we tried to have a conversation with the beneficiaries. And in this facility, there has been a renovation. The labor ward has been painted, and there has been a purchase of separators. And this mother is like, the government is listening to us. We are giving feedback, and this has happened to change. And what does it look like to the healthcare providers? They get to have large volume of data with the dashboards that can help them to make decisions. And these are the dashboards that actually also be guided in planning through the quality improvement teams. So far, we have measured there's an increase in by 94%, we have had quality improvement teams meeting, but also there has been a decrease by 75% of negative feedback on the quality of care from the users. Would like to thank the partners, starting with the government of Tanzania, 100X, and all others that you see on this platform that have made us do what we've been able to do. So we're planning in the next 2 years to scale up. Tanzania has a population of over 60 million people and over 7,000 health facilities. In the next 2 years, we want to scale up to 1,250 facilities and reach over 1 million citizens. And we want to show evidence that the feedback provides impact in healthcare. And we actually want to scale up in the other countries. And this is what we want to showcase, that we believe healthcare system strengthening can be very responsive and can also increase the quality of care in Tanzania. So we welcome you to join us in reaching out the 3.5 million, whereby right now we have raised half of it, to make sure that we continue the mission that we have started. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Helga. Amazing. Up next, we have Haroon and Tazveed from Talimabad. Talimabad has one of the most incredible founding and scaling journeys. It's truly riveting, and I invite you to ask Haroon about it, or Tazveed after the break as well. Born from the vision of a school teacher, who is Haroon, Talimabad rose to tackle the education gap in Pakistan, to provide education to all the children, and one that would be of high quality, would be engaging, and would be truly impactful. And they went about different ways that just built on one another. They started with TV, broadcast, and radio. They went on to build an app that reached millions of children, and then they went into the heart of education, into schools, public and private schools. And their ability to adapt and to capture these opportunities is what we truly admire at 100X. They are the most entrepreneurial organization, I think, that I've come across. And we believe in them purely because the data speaks for itself. The students are doing better. They've almost doubled the number of children that are achieving grade level benchmarks. The teachers are doing better. They're reporting higher quality of life thanks to using Talimabad and being supported in the classrooms. And the schools are doing better. They're performing better both financially and in terms of learning outcomes, thanks to the data and the infrastructure that Talimabad provides. And beyond the data, we believe in Talimabad because it is scaling fast and well. It's scaling with government in Pakistan and has actually just signed the first contract for the government to fully pay for their solution, which is a massive milestone. They're also scaling internationally because they're getting inbound calls from governments, from schools worldwide asking for their solution, and their app is present and being used in 52 countries. So there's a need for this, and it's not only within Pakistan. And we also believe in Talimabad because they truly have a collaborative vision. They know they can't be the only ones to do this. So they're open sourcing their methodology. They're inviting competitors and other edtechs to learn with them, learn from them, and share resources so that this problem can be tackled in multiple ways and multiple angles. And that to us is a true behavior of a social unicorn. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Haroon to the stage.
Lack of engagement in school led to lower learning outcomes. And I really struggled throughout school. And had it not been for the intervention of some really great teachers, I don't know where I would have ended up. But I do know where I ended up, at one of the top universities in the US on a full scholarship. But it is only when I made it back home that I realized just how narrowly I'd landed on the other side of the fence. Right across the fence, I could see almost half of Pakistan's population that goes to school but can't even read at the end of it. I come from a country in which there is a population the size of Australia that has never seen the inside of a school. And so I did what was the most natural thing to do, what my heart told me to do. I opened a school in a slum and I became a teacher. And that's the kind of teacher I became. This is us studying the center of gravity. But I didn't become an engaging teacher just because it was cool or hip. I did it because the students that I taught stayed up all night working and earning for their families. And some of them came to the classroom without having any breakfast. Engagement was not a luxury, it was a necessity. And the results soon started to appear. One of my students graduated. He came off the street, got a job in a bank, and moved his family out of poverty. One of my students learned how to code and now builds websites for international clients, also moved his family out of poverty. And once you see that light, you can't unsee it, right? And this is a question that every entrepreneur grapples with at some point. What is one school when there is a sea of people out there? And so I did the next most natural thing. I grabbed a bike and I traveled thousands of kilometers into rural hinterland of Pakistan, talking to those whose voices had not been heard before, teaching in their schools. And where I saw despair, they showed me that there was an opportunity. In the same country where half of the people don't know how to read, 60% of the population has access to smartphones, and internet, 98% of them have access to public broadcast television. And in the same country where there are not enough public schools, more than half of the population goes to low-fee private schools. They've mushroomed all across Pakistan. We have Harvard in Pakistan at $5 a month, and we've got a run-down Stanford too. Only that it's $1 more expensive than Harvard. And as this friend, my farmer friend told me, it's not that the poor don't want quality education, it's that they've been cheated out of it. In Pakistan, education is the third highest household expenditure item, right after food and rent. As long as the poor have a roof above their heads and a square meal a day, they are hungry for quality education. They want to pay for it. Except even with private schools, the quality is worse than that of public schools. And so 6 years ago, we began this experiment. We translated all of Pakistan's content, all of Pakistan's curriculum into cartoons. And then we put it up on public broadcast television. We also made a mobile app where the students could go after they'd watched the broadcast to watch some more videos and to take some assessments, which you can clearly see don't feel like assessments. And 6 years later, we now stand at a point where the TV broadcast is seen by 6.5 million children every week. And the mobile app has about 1.5 million registered users. It can also run on a smartphone as low as $5. And initially, it started only in the big cities. But then, it slowly spread like a tsunami across all of Pakistan. If you want one slide that shows you the power of technology to enable outcomes for the poor, it's this. 87% of the people in all of these villages and towns and cities report that they see tangible learning gains for their kids. 57% of them live on less than $5 a day. Now that's a great story, isn't it? But we all are born with this question, aren't we? That can't be enough. And so we were sitting on a neat pile in which our broadcast was in air in the morning and in the afternoon. And in the evening, when the kids came back home and their parents could have their phones, the usage for the mobile app would peak up. There was only one spot left in the day where we weren't touching a kid's life. We had gone broad and wide, but we wanted depth of impact. And so there's only one place left in the day where we weren't present, schools. And so we started serving them too. And we linked together all of these assets. A kid in some of these schools will wake up at 7 in the morning and watch cartoons on the television, learn about fractions, go to school, have his teacher deliver a world-class lesson, come back home and watch it again on the telly, or if their parents have a mobile phone, just watch some more cartoons and learn. It's an engagement-driven, non-stop learning throughout the day. And so this is what it looks like for the teacher. The teacher gets bite-sized training, accredited by the Finnish government, by the way, who are really good at training teachers, and a teleprompter on their phone so that they can run world-class experiences. And it's not only the teachers that win, the administrators, the school owners, they get live visibility into how everyone's doing so that they can intervene. And when the kid goes back home, like I've said, the parents get updates and content so that they can get their kid to revise. The whole energy of the school picks up. This is third-party data. 77% of the teachers report a reduction in stress and a rise in productivity. The students learn twice as much as their peers in non-Taliban schools. And because these schools are doing well, they get more admissions. We've been able to align profitability and efficacy for these small businesses. And this is what they look like. If they look like McDonald's, that's by choice. It's because they're doing the same signaling that Costa Coffee and Starbucks do for you. that in every neighborhood, there will be consistent warm, hot coffee every morning. And for all of these parents, there will be consistent, high-quality, affordable education that they can catch. There are 500 of them that are popped up in 17 cities all across Pakistan. This is the fastest growing chain in the history of our time. More importantly, it is sustainable. Each school pays us a fee, and so the model keeps on growing. And so if you thought that you knew how a school looked like, think again. This is one of our schools. It runs from midnight till 5 a.m. in the morning. It is in a cancer hospital where kids who are undergoing chemotherapy are taught by their nurse, who's their teacher, and who learns how to teach on the phone. And so that question again, isn't there? That can't be enough. And so we thought if it can work in private schools, it can also work in public schools. And that hypothesis also turned out to be true. 70% reduction in dropouts, 31% improvement in performance, and we've just signed a contract to serve an entire district. The government pays for it. The government saves money by paying us, and we make a margin too. If that's not a win-win, I don't know what is. And so we've been recognized by Her Majesty, the Queen, at Buckingham Palace. We've also won the WISE Award, only given to around 6 companies across the globe for innovation in pedagogy. And the funny part is I'm not even the most talented in my team. My leadership team is composed of ex-founders. One of them worked with Mark Zuckerberg when he was building Facebook. The other one worked at Y Combinator. And together, these people have built some of the most iconic companies in the region, and now they're building for impact. And so I wouldn't have blown you away and walked without an ask. Here's the ask. We've just done a $2.3 million mixed financing round. We are on track to do $1.3 million in revenue this year. And we're looking to put together $5 million also in mixed capital to take us to 5,000 schools and 1 million kids just by the school vertical alone. And for one last time, that can't be enough. Because there's 1 billion of these kids. If you think they're only in my country, look carefully. They're in the US, in African American neighborhoods. They're in Western Europe and in the UK, in immigrant communities. They're all around us. And we believe that the problems that will confront the world in the next century, from climate change or racial injustice, won't be solved by suited and booted men attending COP28 or Davos. It will be solved by those people who've seen these issues firsthand and have been brought in from the periphery. And only then, once you've crossed this long, winding, hard road many, many years later, we might have a chance to look back at all of this and perhaps once say, that's enough.
Thank you so much, Haroon. And I wonder if, Tasveed, can you stand up and give a wave as well? Because Haroon is heading off on a plane, so if you want to talk about Taliban, go to Tasveed, who will be able to tell you more about their story. Next, it's my great privilege to introduce the last presentation of this section, to introduce the wonderful Samin from Gamal. Gamal is on a mission to end information asymmetry and support the millions of smallholder farmers in India with access to information, better data, so that they can grow their income and improve their livelihoods. And you know that something is in demand and working when you have a referral rate of 80% plus, which is what they managed to achieve in only a few years. Gamal has had an incredible and rapid organic growth, and that's what we really admire about them. They've earned the trust of over 265,000 farmers in only a few years and helped them to increase their income at Farmgate by 81%. And this is huge strides in creating a more equitable and just agricultural economy in India. And we're excited to see what else they can do for these communities. And what we love about Gamal is that they are data-powered, both in their product, which combines macro data from the government with on-the-ground data from their users to form a really accurate picture and useful picture for these farmers to grow and to sell their products. But they're also data-driven inside. So all the strategic decisions that they make are based on data, not just belief. They are adepts of rapid experimentation, and I encourage you to ask them about what they've done in the past few months, which to us has been truly impressive. And as Stefan said, this is a recipe for success. It's not that you come up with a solution and it works straight away, and these are the only organizations that scale. We believe that the organizations that truly look for the answers through experimentation and through data are the ones that will get it right. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Samin to the stage.
Thank you. Is my mic working? Can you hear me loud and clear? Okay. I think the beauty of this place is that every time someone comes on stage to talk, they'll say that the last one was hard to follow. So it's very hard to follow my friend Haroon today and to say something that can get you more excited, that will get you more laughing. But let's see. I've been here in the UK for a few weeks now. And I don't want to break the rule of the land and definitely want to start my presentation by talking about the most important thing, the weather. So welcome everyone to this chilly but beautiful afternoon in London. My name is Samin Kaleem. I'm one of the co-founders of Gramhal. My other two co-founders, Vikas and Achinth. Guys, please raise your hand, stand up. Are conveniently in the audience today and have fully entrusted me to do this by myself. I want us to start off with a quick question. Imagine all of you have Apple stocks. With a raise of hands, can you tell me how many of you would look at stock market before selling these stocks? Okay, almost all of you. Selling these stock affects your income directly, and you need data to make this decision. Now, let's look at this.
क्या किसान को फसल बेचने से पहले मंडी भाव पता लग पाता है?
नहीं करते जी,
नहीं लगता जी,
नहीं पता। और जो भाव व्यापारी लेता है उस भाव को हम बेच लेते हैं।
अरे जो भी गया माल बेचने के लिए गांव को धोखे कोई भी किसान, तो उससे हम पूछ लेते क्या रेट बेचा भाई, तो उन्होंने बताया कि ये रेट बेचा। अब हम आगे हम भी आते हैं, तो अब घाटा मुनाफा जो भी अब बेचना पड़ता है, किसान लोग पैसे रहते नहीं।
अब ये यहाँ पर आते हैं 2-4 व्यापारी, प्राइवेट व्यापारी, तो वो उनसे पूछते हैं भैया क्या रेट चल रहा है। उसने बताया कि भैया मक्का 1800 में चल रहा है, कोई कह रहा 1700 में चल रहा है, और नमी बता रही, फंगस बता रही। तो उस हिसाब से उन्होंने कहा रेट भैया तुम्हारा 1800 रुपये लगेगा, उसी हिसाब से दे देते हैं। मंडी की जानकारी तो लगती नहीं।
कुछ अटका जाती, गेहूँ बोते, कुछ भी करते हैं, मंडी के भाव को पता ही नहीं करते, बेच देते हैं मक्का।
So, even in this world of over-information and connectedness, over 100 million farmers in India don't have access to price crop data when they're making their sale decision. They are unfortunately making the most important decision of their income without this data. When a farmer in India is trying to sell her crop, she either gets this data from her family, her friends, her neighbors, or at worst, from the traders themselves who have conflicting interests. At Gramhal, we are trying to change that. We are on a mission to democratize data for farmers. Gramhal makes it easy for farmers to access hyperlocal, real-time, and reliable data. You can imagine our work as the pulley that fetches the price information from the data well and delivers it to farmers. With our app, farmers can look at market price information, they can compare trends, and they can look at prices. They can decide where and when they want to sell. Our impact study tells us something very powerful. Before we jump on to the impact, let me talk about how many farmers we work with. In the last 3 years, we have worked with 300,000 farmers and answered 13 million queries. And our impact study tells us that farmers have used this data for 3 things: when to sell, where to sell, and at what price. And our work has been especially beneficial for small and marginal farmers. Farmers at Farmgate have negotiated and earned 81% higher income on average. Very recently, I was in a small village called Chorai in central India for our HBS case study. farmers of this village said something very powerful to me. They said 90% of this village uses your product. And for the first time, we have the power to negotiate, the power to push back, and the power to make our own decision. For the first time, there is symmetry between what we know and what the buyer knows. Well, as good as this sounds, there is some bad news for us. As we started scaling, we realized that the quality of our data was not as good. Farmers started giving us feedback that the price is old, unreliable, untrustworthy. And that is when we realized that this is a huge complex problem. It's like a puzzle that has many parts to solve for. As an organization, we are committed to solving all parts of this puzzle, and we have taken a systems change approach to it. As first step, we are working on data quality and trying to solve for it. We are doing two things for it. The first thing, we are working with the federal government of India, where we are trying to fix this data well with them, so that anyone who is trying to fetch any sort of data from this well gets the right kind of data. This work directly affects 25 million farmers across the country. The second thing that we're trying to do is harnessing the power of community. We are building a societal network where individual farmers contribute their own sale data in real time that other farmers in a region can see. But there was a test for us to see the value of the work that we're doing, so we put all of this behind a paywall, and we asked farmers to pay for it. In a short span of time, we have 2,000 farmers paying for price information. This is a small number. I know, I acknowledge. But it says a lot. It says that it's a testament to our work and the need for it, and the fact that farmers need and value accurate information and are willing to pay for it. With this work, we became the only organization in India that has farmers paying for market intelligence. And that's a big deal for us. Well, the reason we are on this journey today is because three people who are very passionate, slightly crazy, met. Vikas and I went to school together 10 years ago, and his passion for farmers' rights rubbed on me. Vikas comes from a farming household in Haryana, and he understands the challenges of farmers' lives very, very deeply. He's extremely proximate to the problem. Achint is a techie who, I don't know why, left his job in San Francisco, flew down to Chindwara, and joined us in starting Ramhal. I have been working at the intersection for data and decision-making for 10 years now. And there's one lesson that I've learned. That simple but catalytic pieces of information have the power to change income levels. And for us as a team, we are just getting started. Moving forward, with the power of our community and with the government work that we're doing, we are going to build an information stack. We are going to keep adding such pieces of catalytic information to our product. The reason we have come this far in this journey is because we have had the opportunity to work with some very phenomenal partners who have stood by us and who have put a lot of faith in us, in our experimentation, and the hypothesis that we wanted to run. So I want to give them a huge shout out today. But when we became part of 100X, we were pushed to think in billions. Not my fault. And also, this looks much crazy here. It was much better on my computer screen. It wasn't looking as dramatic. So 100X pushed us to think in billions. And we raised the bar for ourselves then. So by December 2025, we want to answer 1 billion queries per year and add an additional income of $1 billion to farmers' income annually. To do so, we want to evolve from just being a crop price platform to becoming a market intelligence platform for farmers across India. And for that, we need a tiny amount of $2 million in blended finance. So if you like us, if you like what we do, we invite you to have a conversation with us. Thank you so much.
Okay, in a seamless shift of scene, just ignore what's going on behind me, and you'll realize that I'm about to introduce a panel discussion. It's one thing giving money to these extraordinary ventures. It's another thing making sure that we support them in every way we possibly can. But before all of that, we have to decide from the couple of thousand people who wish to be part of 100X, who should be part of 100X. And we had a very, very high-powered and engaged group of people help us make those decisions. And all the work of Fan, who's about to chair the discussion you're about to hear, has been super important in selecting some of the people you've just heard from, and you'll hear from others after our coffee break. So you're about to hear a conversation chaired by my colleague Fan, involving Leslie, welcome back from the US. My friend Robin Scott, the co-founder and head of Apolitical, Mohammed and Jerome. They're all going to introduce themselves, so don't think I've given short shrift to their other extraordinary biographies. How's that for timing? Are we still moving things? Or how many seconds? Apparently I've got to speak for a few more seconds. Isn't it remarkable how early it gets dark? Though it's always nice to see the lights come on. How many seconds? I think we can, yes, we're on? Good, I don't have to talk to you any longer. Welcome, panel. Welcome.
Hi all, hi. So a slight intermission from all the amazing stories and dimensions that you've been hearing from, which we're so proud to be presenting to you this afternoon, this evening. There's still plenty more to come. But for now, what's between you and a short intermission to get some drinks and much needed snacks is we have our lovely IC members who are with us. They have been incredible in supporting us as a program in making sure that we are sourcing and selecting for the best and those with this social unicorn potential that you just saw on screen with very vivid colors, which was lovely. So for the next 30 minutes, thank you for spending that time with me, with our audience, to share some insights around how we've been sourcing and selecting for these social unicorns. And if I may, just to invite each of you to start with a gentle introduction and share your background and experience to date, and specifically, what is it that made you want to be part of the 100X journey? And Leslie, welcome back. If I can just invite you to share your thoughts on this founding vision that really centers around the social unicorn concept, and do they exist? But Jerome, I'll start with you to kick off, and we'll work our way down the line.
With background? Or?
With background, yeah.
So I guess can you hear me? Is that better?
Oh, lean inside.
Yes. 3 phases to my career. For the first 10 years, I trained as a lawyer, so I was a partner in a couple of big city law firms, basically doing tech, venture capital work. For the next 20 years, I was a partner in, Saul may have a different view, but we thought it was the leading technology venture capital firm across Europe. We invested in lots of, a few good companies, a few not so good, but net, we've done okay. And then for the last 2.5 years, I stepped back from that, and I've been involved in the impact space. I have 5 roles. This is one of them. I'm a governor at the South Bank Centre, the Royal Festival Hall, Hayward Gallery, if you know that, a mental health charity, a foundation in Richmond, large foundation, and also something that Tom knows about, a company called Earth Security, which is trying to harness global finance to fixing issues like climatic change and biodiversity, so nothing too big there. That's me.
And why 100x?
Why 100x? Because I felt that having spent close to 30 years in investing in very young businesses, I just thought, not that I had great skills, but maybe I had some experiences that could be applied into the impact space. I saw a lot of parallels in terms of what the entrepreneurs we've heard from today have been doing. And could I deploy those experiences, those skills, maybe that network into that space, but also powered by this institution? I thought there was an interesting collision between those sorts of entrepreneurs, the convening and teaching powers of this school, and I thought that was interesting. I think it's a thesis still to be proven, but I believe it can be done, and I want to try to help.
Robin?
How's the sound?
Perfect.
Is that better? So, Robin Scott, I grew up in Botswana, a place that has seen and sees many of the problems that the amazing fellows here are solving. My educational background was in deep technology and computational biology, but I then spent most of my career as a social entrepreneur, always interested in using technology for social good. And that included for-profits and non-profits. And most recently, prior to what I'm doing now, it included a non-profit in South Africa teaching coding in the most dangerous prisons in the country and in the townships that feed those prisons. And one of the things that became abundantly clear to me is even if you're getting people back into work and winning awards, which we were, you are so downstream of massive market failures. Most of those people are in prison because they've been let down by criminal justice failures, by education failures, by health failures. And I thought, I want to work with people who have power upstream of these problems. So that was one tributary that brought me to work on government. The other was just the lack of innovation with technology in government. It's very neglected by the venture capital space, especially, which has left a lot of low-hanging fruit. So back in 2017, I launched Apolitical, which has a mission to build 21st century governments that work for people and the planet. We're a global network now used by hundreds of thousands of verified policymakers and public servants in 160 countries to share best practice and to learn 21st century skills. And I give that detail because all of this feeds very precisely into why I'm so excited to be here and working with 100x. I needed 100x 4 years ago, 2 years after we'd started getting real traction. It was such a slog still to paint this picture of ambition and the potential for market rate returns if you were patient and long-term, and the ability ultimately to reach billions of people if you have the right backing. And I reckon, from what I know of 100x now, it could have shaved a year off our progress. I've also seen the importance of government as a way to scale social entrepreneurs. I might speak a little bit more about this later. And finally, Apolitical works with the world's top universities. We work with Stanford, Oxford, and we work with LSE to create training for government. So I've experienced the benefits of working with an incredible university that's respected around the world. And I think it's, over time, we're going to see such exciting stories of 100x fellows weaving LSE magic in.
Mohammed.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed Osman. I am from Kenya. I began my career without knowing what I was doing, which was trying to solve a problem which is big in my country, which is getting clean water in a reliable way. But I believed you can do it in a commercial way. I didn't believe in non-profits as a solution to solving it. I failed a few times, but 25 years later, the people I was working with have clean water and they're paying for it, and it's sustainable. So I asked myself, what next? And I came to LSE to see what else could I learn. And when I came here, I found really clever people doing some really clever things, but also grappling with the similar situations that I was grappling with. So I thought I can add value by straddling the two worlds, the world which has money and the world that needs the money. So I put myself in as a translator between these two worlds. I spent the last 20 years here in the West deploying capital, about $500 million. And I have also been able to unlock for our ventures another extra $1 billion to really amplify the impact. But what kept frustrating me, and still does, and we've had the word today, is that the problems we're trying to solve are growing quicker than the solutions that we're bringing to them. So I left the grant-making world to go to nonprofit consulting, which is a unicorn in itself, to really help partners who are trying to scale the solution to do them quickly, effectively, and in a sustainable way. So I joined a group of extremely talented people. It's called Spring Impact. My colleague is in the room later if you want to hear more about it. They focus only on scale. That's all they do. They have tools, capabilities, expertise, and they're hungry to make sure that we can close this problem. So when I saw 100X, I was completely overwhelmed. I'm like, there's a whole company set up to do this. In my old school, support people who are doing some incredible work, and I said I want to be part of this. So I bring to this group of wonderful people my talent, my network, my knowledge, but also more than anything, my passion. So that's
Thank you. And Leslie.
Thanks, Anne. I need a moment because this is such a moment for all of us. So I just want to thank everyone up here and everyone in the audience is just for creating the Summit Day today. So those that don't know me, I'm the founding director of 100X, and I remember the day I started, and I walked in the door, and there was one person there who's in the front row, who's Carrie Rousel, and we looked at each other and said, okay, let's get to work. But what a gift to have 50 million pounds and to think about how we're going to craft a vision and an organization and a culture and a community that was going to deliver on a really ambitious, audacious vision to create cohorts of social unicorns in the world. And when we sat there and we debated, what Stefan said in the beginning, what is a social unicorn? Is that even possible? Are they real? We started doing what people at LC do, which is start learning and get curious. And really quickly, we started talking to social entrepreneurs and the really successful ones, right? The people who had created organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous and organizations like UNICEF. And we learned that this whole thing cannot just be about endlessly fundraising. It cannot be about putting entrepreneurs in a position where it's just about more money. They need to scale in really smart ways. It's about scaling impact, not just scaling your fundraise. And we started learning there's models and ways to do this. There's open source models, there's government adoption. We shouldn't just think about the venture capital model. We need to flip it on its head and ask to the world for entrepreneurs that were thinking about scaling impact in radically innovative ways. So with that, we kind of hit go and said, let's see what's out there in the world. And the vision was really, can we find entrepreneurs that need transparency, that need to have a capital provider who's going to be really honest about what's going on. I think one of the best commitments that we made as an organization and a team was we're going to empower everybody that applies to have all of the information they know about where they stand in the application process, about how many people applied, so that it can be an even playing field for entrepreneurs who are working day in and day out to fundraise. So we're going to build this on transparency in exchange for evidence, which we want to see from entrepreneurs. The second that we wanted to provide was resources. And we have this incredible intellectual capacity at the London School of Economics, but we need to be engaging government, we need to be engaging capital providers, we need to be engaging connectors. And the third, of course, was the money that we were able to provide, which every entrepreneur needs, and we wanted to make sure that that was open and available and trust-based. So that was the founding vision. And 3 really unexpected things happened. The first was demand was off the charts. We were an unknown organization within the London School of Economics. We expected about 400 applications. We got over 1,300 for our very first cohort, which of course the 8 are here today. We're incredible. The second thing that absolutely shocked me was you guys. The community that was built and showed up for these entrepreneurs to build a family was just absolutely remarkable. And the third was partnerships, like with UBS, who said, yeah, we get this, we see it, and we know that it's going to take more than just the London School of Economics and this grant to get these entrepreneurs to where they need to go. And we forged partnerships that in a year and a half, we are just blown away by what we've achieved. But it's not us. It's what our entrepreneurs are really achieving in the world. And as you saw today, every single one of them is undeniably on their way to becoming a social unicorn. So that was the vision, and that's why I'm here today.
Amazing. Thank you. So let's dig into the topic of conversation today, which is really centers around kind of the sourcing part, the selecting. How do you really identify these social unicorns in the first place? And I just invite each of you to share what you think is the key ingredient in looking for such a potential in a social entrepreneur. And if maybe I start with Robin this time, and we'll work our way down.
It's so tricky because it's tempting to say, enumerate all the usuals like fantastic teams, but I guess I'd treat that as the table stakes and would just comment on the area I understand best, which is how you plug in to government. So we get excited as a group where there's a market failure. That's often a big market failure is where social entrepreneurs can step in. But a market failure also means a government failure, because when the market fails, governments should be stepping in. And the fact that social entrepreneurs find all these gaps is because governments don't step in the right way. But then ultimately, if you want to get to scale, if you want to reach 1 billion people, you will have to interface with government in some way. Government as a customer, or at least government as a sales channel, a referrer, a partner. So if a team and a technology is well placed to do that, there's huge potential. I'd be interested if any of the 8 have no connection or interest in government. I suspect not. So I look a lot for that potential, for signals that already exist in terms of connections with government. It's been amazing to see how good so many of these relatively small ventures are in forging early partnerships with government. One of the lessons we've learned working closely with a range of governments around the world is social entrepreneurs can do this thing that governments really, really struggle to do, which is to take risks and learn. You are penalized in government if you take risks. Governments want to outsource those risks to social entrepreneurs. So many of the great early partnerships are forged with that in mind, and you can actually, it's surprising how easily you can knock on the door of a government official if you know what the door is, and say, I'm getting this data, this is what I'm learning, would you like to work with me? And I think some of the best ventures are doing that, forming those connections earlier, and ultimately that leads to partnership. I'll just end with a couple of data points. So governments control about 40% of GDP on average. I think we're heading for $100 trillion global GDP this year. Nice round number. So 40 trillion controlled, about 10% of global GDP is spent by governments on everything from technology to delivering social services. So you're looking at $10 trillion a year ultimately deployed by governments to companies and social ventures. And that's a very big number to go after.
Mohammed, thoughts?
It's very hard to follow that. That number had just hit me hard. I look for 2 broad things we do here on the committee. One is the ecosystem within which you're operating. As a venture, who else is doing this? How are you adding to that? How do you interface with it? Are you really generally moving the dial on this, or are you filling a gap that doesn't need to be filled? And then the other thing we're looking at, which is I think is a sort of a quality of smart people, but also it's a failure of smart people, is that people really fall in love with their solutions. And people love their solution, then they look for a problem to solve with their solutions. So it's how do we caution for that? How do we say, fall in love with the problem? Your solutions might change and evolve, but if it doesn't move the problem, then it's not the one that was going to get to the 1 billion people. Because many ventures are led by really thoughtful, smart people who have completely obsessive compulsive behavior when it comes to solutions. And we say, just calm down and, and take a bigger, sort of a higher level view and see, is it still doing what it's supposed to do when I go to, like what we saw in Pakistan? When you scale up to the whole country, is it still solving the problem? Or is it a cute mobile-based platform that's based in one village? So that's what the push we kind of give to the ventures.
Thank you. So partnerships, problem, where there's a P theme going. And maybe, Jerome, if I come to you next, and then Leslie.
You're inviting me to say people, aren't you? Yeah. Okay, so I get the short straw. They're giving you all the visionary stuff. I'm going to give you the basics, which we shouldn't forget. It does have to be big. If we were in the old VC world, you'd be saying big addressable market, but I think every one of the speakers today conveyed that. It is about scale. It's the unicorn. So it has to be something, if we're going to back it, you've got to be making an impact. And that really, with one or two country exceptions, that means going cross-border. So I think immediately you're looking for people, entrepreneurs who are thinking at scale and across boundaries. And that's not easy. It's not easy at all. It means that we typically need to see some evidence that it's working. It doesn't have to be yet at scale, but it has to be something that you can see, wow, that can just go viral, it can spread, from whatever the medium is. But it's got to be something that can, and as Robin said, persuading governments, showing that speed of scaling is very important. So that has an appeal, but we can't get away from the other P to people. I think, forgive me, I may mispronounce your name. Is it Rika? Richa, you put it up because you said A-team, and then you'd evidence an A-team, and thankfully all the other slides also evidence A-teams as well, because without that, I'm afraid it won't just pass muster, and we have debates, and it's very difficult to gauge. And what does that actually mean? It means some sort of spike. It doesn't mean you all have to go to the same school. In fact, preferably, you shouldn't go to the same type of school. We definitely like teams with diversity in all its forms. But we certainly want that spike. It could be a hunger. It, of course, has to have some intellect, ultimately. You can't get away from that. But it also has to, I think, have evidenced itself into some sort of application of a model, a business model, something that we often have debates about, oh, well, that's been done before, and then we remind ourselves, yes, but this is innovating and doing it differently, and we think about that. I think the ability, intellect to pivot, things may not be going well, don't be afraid to change course. Listeners, we don't know the answers, but as Leslie said, there is a wonderful network of support that I think the incubator can provide. And if we're not doing that, then we'd love to hang on to your coattails and get bragging rights, but we may be able to actually support you along the way. So I think that's always a good trait when I think about the good entrepreneurs, certainly that I've worked with outside of this environment. And I think a sort of humility always doesn't go. It's not easy for entrepreneurs to evidence that, but sometimes it helps. But I think that spike, that agility, that nimbleness, and ultimately an A-team. If we can't see an A-team, it won't work. Fortunately, everyone in this room has passed that test, so congratulations. And by the way, I should just say, it's a lot of our exercises actually for the IC is a very another paper-led exercise. And it's wonderful to see it really coming to life today. I think everything you've achieved, and you've actually achieved quite a lot from when we first made our decision. So I'd just like to congratulate you all on that. I think it's tremendous. So, yeah.
Perfect. The 3 P's of investment or selection. Leslie.
Can I take that mic, actually? Thank you. I don't want to strain my neck. Old lady. That was so eloquently said. And I just want to say, in the investment committee meetings, it's so intense. There are so many questions to ask. And they know, every venture has given us feedback that you are one of the hardest money we've ever received because the rigor is just so high, almost to our discredit. But I mean, the work is, we have a tough job selecting, but they have the hard job applying. So well done. Great responses across the board. And And I just want to say, the thing for me, I always think about the questions that we ask entrepreneurs to answer. And when Julie, Carl, Fan, and I were coming up with these questions, we really had to, you only get one shot at asking these questions, right? And you only get to ask a finite number of questions to entrepreneurs who are super busy and don't have a lot of time to answer all your crazy questions. But one that I really love reading the answer to, and I really spend a lot of time on, is no solution's perfect. What are the kinks in your model? And you tell us if an entrepreneur can harness and share exactly what they know that they don't know, and they know it's really hard, and we can get our heads around, we think we can play a role in helping address that kink, smoothing it out, and greasing the wheels for more traction. That, to me, it shows so much. It shows humility of an entrepreneur. It shows awareness of their market. It shows awareness and strengths of their own team. That question shares so much about the venture, and it enables us to build trust and really say, this is a company or an organization that we can support because they have a really great grip on the problem. So in addition to the evidence that they've all showed about this, their solutions, the track record, I mean, every single pitch up here has an insane statistic that you have to do the work to get that information. You have to listen to your customers and your beneficiaries to understand those numbers. And you've got to iterate and refine, and every entrepreneur that walks through the 100X store has done all of that work. And it's the thing that inspires me most.
Absolutely, could not agree more. And we still have that kinks question for anyone who's interested in applying. So then if I may move on to my next question, which is really, there are lots of different impact accelerators, incubators out there in the marketplace. And from your perspective, what is it that makes 100X so different? So in other words, what is it that really draws these unicorns in the first place? And maybe if I start with Mohammed this time.
Oh, good. I'm getting the hang of it, the shaking mic. I think what set this one apart from others, for me personally, is the whole round experience. So it's not just the funds that the entrepreneurs get, it's the mentorship, it's the connection, the introductions, the cohort actually learning from each other. That is extremely powerful for me, and that's what I feel like this sets this particular accelerator apart from others. And I don't want to steal the thunder, but also because it's in my old school. Yeah.
Take it. Oh, please. So back here. Thank you. So, reiterating what I said earlier, I think the LSE connection is really profound. I think it's a little bit challenging because it takes a bit of time to figure out how to weave that into your work. But I think over time, we're going to see some great examples of that. You know, in our case, we've worked with LSE to develop a very innovative digital training program for government. But that is what we do. That's our jam. So it was much more obvious. But I suspect on a research, from a research perspective, from a credibility, just the level of thinking amongst so many individuals on the LSE academic staff, I think can be harnessed. But perhaps even more importantly, from my perspective, is just the billion number, the social unicorn number, and the striving for that. I think that is norming a really important idea. Social ventures are so, they're so set back by the lack of examples and the lack of aspiration. And just stating that this is possible and supported is half the problem. And then supporting ventures, so we have a whole lot of exemplars, is a huge thing. And just to show you a little bit of the sausage machine, one of the aspects I like too is we have by no means figured out exactly what this is. There's a lot of definitional arm wrestling going on. Different people weigh different aspects of that scale question differently. And I suspect it will, even if we settle on a definition that everyone agrees with, it will probably evolve over time. And I think the willingness to hold that space for that flexing definition is actually a really important and exciting part.
I love the way you looked at me when you said the differences of opinion on scaling. But it's fair.
That's very fair.
It's good. You do agree with me. You do agree with me. No, and I think I endorse what Leslie said. I mean, there are very involved discussions in all cases. I think I'm going to sound repetitious, but I do think I think there are many, many incubators around the world, and there are, I'm sure, many incubators out there that are very good, that are attached to universities. So I don't actually, of itself, push that as a differentiator. But I do think there is something not unique about LSE, but I think quite special about your LSE. And it's an opportunity which has two dimensions. I think one is for you, the entrepreneurs who we back, to seize those opportunities, particularly in government. Robin said it correctly, and I think if there's one thing that the school does do well, and its history suggests that, is its connections into government globally, policy, and I think that's for you to access, thrive. And I think if you do that, I think the school would have done its best to support you and provide more than just capital. So I'd encourage that. I think the other piece, though, and this is flipping it around, actually, it's the LSE, and I'm sure there are people from LSE apart from Stefan and the team here. I think LSE has to live up to it as well, and in turn, open up its doors and truly embrace this opportunity. I think if it does that, then I think it's onto something. And I'm not saying, by the way, I've seen anything to suggest LSE isn't doing that, far from it. And, you know, we sit in this wonderful building. As Leslie says, you know, there's been a fantastic amount of money given to this. But that opportunity has to be seized, and LSE has to equally commit back to these entrepreneurs. I think if both those things happen, and there's every suggestion that it will, then I think it becomes very powerful. And I think that's what the differentiator is, because I think that it's easy to say these things, it's going to be in the doing. And I think where other universities may not have achieved it, I think LSE has a chance to do it because it comes so naturally. This is the LSE space. And the reason I got excited, as I said a few minutes ago, is because I can see that. I hope we'll succeed in it, but there's a lot of hard work to do from you, the entrepreneurs, but also the institution and everyone on this panel. So I think we should all try to hope that all that comes together, and then we'll all be happy.
I'm gonna give an aspirational answer because I think everyone knows what we've built, and I want to share a bit about what I hope we become, and that's built on one foundational piece, which is I vow to you that this cohort and every team member is truly like family, and that is quite a soft and mushy thing to say, but that's how you do build trust. And this cohort and this family has given us the pathway for where this needs to go. And I remember it was when they all came to London a couple months ago, and we sat down in this very open and honest space talking about what's going well, we just started, what's not going well. And I won't mention who this is because he'll turned bright red, but he looked at me in his very honest eyes and he said, the one thing I don't want is to keep going through accelerators. And that's a very harsh thing to hear when you're leading Accelerator, but it's true. These entrepreneurs need to move off of the Accelerator and the grant program merry-go-round and be unleashed. They need to stop having to fundraise constantly because there is so much important work to do. So, and how do we do that? It's a capital we in this room opening up our every contact that we have to make sure that they don't have to do this anymore. They should not be a broken car going around from one accelerator to the next, because that is not how we're going to tackle education in Pakistan, and that is not how we're going to change the prison system in the United States. It is about all of us stepping back, because in this room, it's us and 2 degrees of every connection that we have that are going to solve all of these problems in the world. And I know it's a crazy thing to hear, but it is so true. It's us and 2 degrees of everybody that you know that cares about these problems and is going to solve them. And you do know someone that has a ton of money that could stop Arun from having to do this and give them 10 million bucks so that they can get to work and start scaling this problem. It works. These solutions work. That's the beauty of 100X Ventures. We know that they're good, right? They've been through every one of these brains on this panel to vet them. Her brain, Stefan's, I mean, so many people and other organizations have vetted these ventures. They're good. We don't have to prove, they don't have to prove anything anymore. It's working. And that is where we step in and say, let's work on this together, right? And that is the capital that's the plea, is that we can have them make 100X the last stop on the train before they graduate to a new paradigm, a new kind of future where they don't have to be doing this anymore and they can get to work.
And you kind of stepped into my last question, which is perfect. But I am conscious of time, so maybe just a final few short words to our audience, to maybe future social unicorn founders, maybe to those who wish to support these amazing entrepreneurs as they go through the scaling journey. Just any other thoughts you'd like to share with the room? And maybe Mohammed, I'll start with you.
I need a moment. Maybe you got your own. Oh, Robin.
Who are you looking at, Pam?
Robin.
I would like two things. I would like us to be able to get good enough at detecting signals that we can back ventures earlier in their journey, because so many of the submissions we see, people have just been slogging away for half a decade, a decade. It would be great to come in earlier, and I would like 100X to be able to fund more systems change. That's harder, it's less crunchy than educating, than health, but things like democracy, governance, these are the fabric of our societies and economies, and we need to get better at backing the entrepreneurs who are reinventing those.
I think I'm going to bifurcate the answer. I think to the entrepreneurs, aim high, I think be brave, and surround yourself with really good people, whether at board level, team members. If you have good people, you're giving yourself a great crack. And I think listen to those good people around you and allow them to flourish and push through if they're within your organization. I think to the funders in the room, and I believe there are lots of you, this is just a personal bent, but I'm going to say it. I come from an environment where it's very logical where you go for finance. You have seed capital, you have Series A money, you have pre-IPO, you have public money, etc. And I don't see that in social impact, and I think it's very confusing. I think I'd love to, you should maybe talk to the entrepreneurs, not to me, but I think people struggle as to know where to go to. If you're going to go for seed capital in London, you know where to go to. You talk to Saul, and then his next stage. If you want to do late stage hedge fund money, you go somewhere else. You know where those pockets are, and it's easy, and it allows these people to get back to work, as Leslie says. And I think that's lacking in the social impact space, and I'm not quite sure why. To me, it shouldn't be that so, or shouldn't be like that. And I think if you can help clean that up, I think you'll be more efficient, you'll be better because you'll be more focused and expert in it, and you'll help these entrepreneurs get the capital they need efficiently to go on and actually build the businesses.
I got my brain back now. Mine is quite humble. I think it's sort of to be very proud of what you have achieved so far, because often people tell you have to do more, there's more to be done, but actually doing what you're doing right now is a big plus. And remember the resilience in you. When you showed the picture, Haroon, about sort of the school being the sad place and where you are now, just don't forget that. That should really be held very close to yourself, because it's not the funds, it's not the donors, it's the drive in you that brings you to where you are. So I tell our many the ventures we work with, remember what got you out of bed to do this, because that is what's important at the end of the day.
And Leslie, anything else?
Yeah, just to the entrepreneurs, we always have your back, and that really always. And I mean, Abdulhamid and I are on Zoom, and he's scratching his head, and I'm scratching my head right there with him, and I'll always do that with you for every entrepreneur out there. For you guys at least, not enough time in the day to do that with everyone. But for everyone else in the audience, if you can just flip through this and find one venture, do yourself a favor. They're hilarious and funny and brilliant. Just connect with just one entrepreneur, because you know what? You know someone that could change the game. I mean, every one of us has a story of our own journey. I've never, ever quit my job and started something, and they all have. But anytime I've taken a risk in my own life, one random person that I was working with in a computer lab, changed my life and opened a door for me that I wasn't expecting when I was 19 years old. We've all had that one moment in person, and you probably have one person that could change the game for these guys, and that is what it's where we're here physically together, which is such a gift. Do that, do yourself a favor, and it'll just make 1 + 1 = 3.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you all for sharing your brain with me, with the audience, sharing your knowledge. I certainly, on a very personal note, really appreciate it. And once again, really appreciate your support in 100X. And thank you, the audience, for your attention. And please also help me thank the panelists again today.
I'm Mr. Housekeeping today. You'll see in the program that there's a kind of networking thing. It's not, it's just a short comfort break. So we have 20 minutes to refuel and then to hear the rest of the presentations from the 100X ventures. Okay, so we have 20 minutes. just start, otherwise we'll never get them.
Okay, we're going to get started with the next presentation of the evening. So please do take your seats and turn your attention to the stage. Next up, it is my great privilege to introduce Abdulhamid from Darcel. Darcel is on a mission to democratize access to EdTech, to help children in low-resource settings to learn using AI for good. And Darcel emerged from the brilliant mind of Abdulhamid, who is an MIT and Harvard Kennedy School graduate and Stanford Innovation Fellow, a pretty smart guy, who was writing his thesis on learning in low-resource settings. And when COVID hit, Abdulhamid realized the scale and the severity of the educational crisis unfolding, but unfolding especially in areas where kids didn't have access to EdTech and couldn't transfer learning online. So he turned his academic focus into a social venture with strong mission, and he was one of the only NGOs to ever partake in the prestigious Y Combinator program, scaling his venture. What sets Darcel apart and what we love at 100X is its really smart use of technology. On the one hand, it uses AI to make learning engaging, fun, impactful, something that children want to return to and really is meaningful. On the other hand, it uses channels that are available to all, that are available on low bandwidth, like Facebook Messenger, like WhatsApp, so that kids can actually access this, and it isn't reserved just for the most privileged out there. And in a remarkably short time span, Darcel has managed to scale to partner with the Jordanian government into all public schools, and showing incredible learning outcomes already, but has also scaled beyond Jordan and is now, in the past few weeks only, scaling pilots in Delhi and Lagos as well, and has seen the potential for this solution to be applied worldwide. There's no reason for it to be bound to the borders of Jordan. So at 100X, we see Darcel's potential to bridge the digital divide in education, and we can't wait to continue supporting his journey. Please welcome to the stage, Abdulhamid.
Thank you, Nell. Thank you, everyone. It is a great privilege to be here today. I'm Abdulhamid Haidar. I'm the founder of Darcel, and we are solving a global education crisis. 6 in 10 students globally are failing math, and this was true even before COVID. Most of them are in low and middle income countries, and most of them are in school. They're just not learning. And this is not just about math. It's about cognitive skills, it's about critical thinking, and ultimately it's about a pathway to a better life, because education is human capital. Now, to solve a problem this large, we need technology. But the problem in education is that most education technology is inaccessible. For 1 billion students around the world, simple solutions like YouTube videos or Zoom or smartphone apps are inaccessible because of internet or device-related constraints. And the day I realized this was the day that Darcel began. And I want to take you back to that day. It was March 2020, a month that I'm sure you all remember, the month when COVID hit. And I was a graduate student at Stanford, living in Silicon Valley, the heart of the global technology innovation boom. So my transition from an in-person class on a Friday to Zoom on a Monday was relatively seamless. But I'm from Syria. Very few students in Syria made that transition, ever. Very few students in the developing world made that transition. Because the reality is that most education technology that we have today was built for people like you and me. People with an iPhone, with a laptop at home, with a good Wi-Fi connection. And in the process, we've left out 1 billion students who don't have that connectivity. And those are precisely the 1 billion students who need education the most. But it doesn't need to be that way. We can and need to have accessible, low-technology education technology on channels like SMS, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger, which are truly accessible even in low-resource settings. And that is what Darcel is. It's an effective solution that was designed for low and middle income countries. Darcel is a simple chatbot. Using it is as simple as texting a friend. In the beginning, a student picks a chapter, and then they get questions from over 500,000 questions that we have designed aligned to local curricula. When students get stuck, we send them hints and explanations to help them learn, and everything is personalized by AI. Our algorithms are constantly measuring student skills, figuring out where they are, and adapting content to the right level. It's also fun and engaging. We use gamification and motivational messages to keep students excited and to create an interactive experience to motivate students about math and learning in general. And most importantly, everything we do in partnership with schools and to supplement formal K-12 education. Teachers are the ones that are telling students about Darcel, and they're also receiving reports, also through WhatsApp, that help them motivate their students and give them valuable insights about where they are. Now, there is no silver bullet in education, but if you were to build one, what would it look like? You'd want something that's easy to implement, even in low-resource schools. Something cheap, but also effective, and something that can scale. Not only to a large number of beneficiaries, but also to a large volume of usage. Now, Darcel only requires 5 minutes of teacher effort a week, which has been key to our success. Teachers always tell us that this is one of the easiest initiatives they've ever been asked to implement. It's also very cheap. It costs us less than $1 per student per year to implement Darcel. And our first RCT showed that Darcel is incredibly effective at improving learning outcomes. And we actually have 2 more RCTs in the pipeline to show that this number is only going to grow. And I'm very happy to say we've already reached over 100,000 public school students. And they've solved over 100 million math questions on Darcel's chatbots. We scale by partnering with governments. 2 years ago, we launched in Jordan with a pilot in 2 public schools. And in a span of 16 months, we went from 2 schools to every public school in the country. And now we're replicating this in both India and Nigeria. We've already piloted in those countries, working with the state governments of Lagos and Delhi. We've proved that solutions like Darcel can work even in different settings, and now we're actively working to scale in those environments as well. And in fact, I'm happy to announce that only last week, we expanded our pilot in Nigeria to 100 schools, and we'll be doing a similar thing in Delhi in the coming weeks. But we need your help to get there. We need your help to reach the next level of scale and impact. So today we're raising $1 million, which is all that we actually need to reach 1 million students next year in 2024. And that puts us on a pathway to 100 million students reached by 2030, bringing us that much closer to SDG 4. Now, I've had a very privileged educational background. But the global education system that served me very well is fundamentally broken. Education is supposed to be an equalizer. It's supposed to be a force for equality. But how can that be when only a privileged minority has access to quality education? When only a privileged minority are benefiting from technology in 2023? I'm very excited about Darcel because we can change that. We can make the benefits of EdTech available to everyone. And I'm very grateful to 100X and to the many organizations that have joined us on our journey. And we're still very early in our journey. We're going to go far, and I hope that you will be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abdulhamid. Next up, we have Rocket Learning. It's a great privilege to introduce Utsav and Vishal to the stage. When I talk about Rocket Learning, generally the reaction I get is, wow, they've scaled so fast, so far. And it's really nothing short of extraordinary. In just 3 years, they have scaled to provide early childhood education in places where it didn't exist to over 2 million children in just 3 years. And this is because they're really smart about scale. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They instead are leveraging channels that already exist and the power of collaboration. They're working with government, with the local daycare centers that already have access and are supporting children in other ways. They're working with parent communities who want to support their children. And they're just providing the technology to make that happen. So they really have a human touch in their approach that we appreciate. But while we love this approach, we also recognize and really love the way that they are embracing technology to multiply their impact and to personalize their impact. So they were recently selected as the Google for AI Challenge, as one of the most prestigious prizes in this space, to explore safe and effective ways to leverage technology to make that widely accessible to all. And finally, what gets us really excited at 100X is the potential for policy influence and catalyzing change at an even larger scale. Rocket Learning is already working with government in India, but it's also advocating for change and advocating for the provision of early childhood education on a much larger scale. And given their track record, and given the high levels of trust that they've built with the parent communities and with the children, with the daycare centers, we think that they're the right social venture to make that happen. So please join me in welcoming Utsav and Vishal to the stage.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. I think there are some mic issues. You can hear me clearly right now? Okay, great. You know, we would usually start with saying that's a really difficult act to follow. You were amazing. But thank you. I'm really glad that we're following you, because I think you spoke about the problem of education really beautifully. You spoke about the challenges and you know, the need for having a solution which is easily adoptable by the government. So thank you for that, Abdul Hamid. So we're Vishal Sunil and Utsav Kheria, co-founders of Rocket Learning. Now, you know, if we can just take a moment to reflect on our own childhood. Some of us would be parents here. You know, I was just chatting with a couple of people earlier, and we were reflecting on our childhood, and we were like, you know, stories, our parents told us stories. As parents, you know, we do nursery rhymes with our children. We do puzzles. We answer, you know, innumerable questions to our children. However, most low-income children in our country do not have access to that. And we want to make sure that every single child in our country has access to the same kind of information, and you know, there's someone who answers their innumerable questions. There is clearly a huge learning gap across the world. And consequently, there is a huge learning gap in India. India today has the maximum number of children who are without basic literacy or basic numeracy. Today, children in India enter grade 1 when they are 6 years old, before which they go to daycare centers, something called Anganwadis, where they are fed, they are taken care of, which is really important, but they are not really taught. They don't learn anything in those Anganwadis. Cognitive stimulation at this age is extremely, extremely critical. Today, there are 40 million children in India who are without basic literacy or basic numeracy. If you are a 12-year-old child, there is a 3 in 5 chance that you still don't know letters or you still don't know numbers. This matters because children cannot really ever catch up, falling further and further behind. Just because these kids did not win the birth lottery, like, you know, maybe all of us did over here, does not mean that they should not have the same opportunity to learn. Now, the reason why we're talking about the problem, and I know we've spoken a lot about the problem, is not because, you know, I think all of us understand that there is an education problem, but we are very, very optimistic and positive that something can be done about this. And, you know, we feel confident that you know, we made a start, and a lot of the organizations here have made a start towards that. We believe that early childhood education is critical and needs to be tackled in several ways. At Rocket Learning, we've adopted a three-pronged approach. We believe in agency of parents, and we want to empower parents to really engage in the learning of their children. We are introducing early childhood education in daycare centers across the country and upskilling these daycare center workers, called Anganwadi workers, across 9 states in the country today. And we are partnering closely with the central and state governments on policy and implementation of early childhood education. Now, before we started Rocket Learning, I've been personally in education for the last decade or so. But before we started Rocket Learning, we visited, we visited several villages and towns across the country. We spoke to thousands of parents. And we realized a few things. One, they are extremely hardworking. They work much harder than definitely me. They are extremely busy. They are very, very aspirational, and they care deeply about their children, which we know. But they care deeply about the success of their children, but often don't know what they need to do to make their child successful. The children often end up at home, either alone or being looked at by a caregiver. There are innumerable questions being unanswered, and maybe their infinite potential being wasted. Now, at Rocket Learning, we realized that parents are the most invested in the success of their children. And we wanted to design a simple solution which makes it really easy for them to engage in the learning of their children. Here's how our program works with parents. We design simple, engaging, fun content which are sent on parent WhatsApp groups across 100,000 such communities today. Now in India, there are obviously a lot of low-income families, but 70% of them today have smartphones, and all of them use WhatsApp. We wanted to design a solution which is really simple for them. These parent WhatsApp groups are really important because the power of communities, we spoke about the power of communities at LSE. We believe strongly in the power of communities, and we wanted to leverage that. Parents do these activities with their children at home. These are designed for physical settings, like identifying 5 round objects around you, or making objects with dough. Things which are easily available at any household, and any parent with any literacy level can easily do that with their child. The parent then send it back on these communities. The others get excited, they get motivated to also do these activities with their children and share it back. It's like positive peer influence. We send nudges to these parents on these communities, maybe before dinner at let's say 6 p.m. to do these activities and share it back. And lastly, it's very important for parents to be motivated regularly. So we constantly share report cards, certificates, medals in partnership with the government to really recognize them for their efforts. One of the biggest challenges, though, is access to all of the parents, because they could be fairly remote. But in India, we have a secret weapon. There are 1.4 million daycare centers across the country, which is for an average of 1,000 people, there is a daycare center in every vicinity in the country. Now, these centers, as I mentioned earlier, they take care of the children, but they don't really teach children today. What's powerful about these centers is that every single center is led by a community worker, someone who we call an Anganwadi Didi. Didi means sister. So every single center is led by an Anganwadi sister or an Anganwadi Didi. Now, these Didis are women from the community who are trained on basic child development. They take care of the mother from the time they are pregnant to the time the child goes off to school. They are deeply, deeply trusted by the community. We train these Anganwadi Didis on early childhood development, on education specifically, and on how they can take care of the children better within these centers. On top of this, these Didis really turbocharge these parent groups. They congratulate and recognize these parents on a regular basis by simply recognizing them by saying congratulations, or well done, or shabash, or khub chan, in whatever language, in the multiple languages that are there in India. They work with these parents. And I think this is very, very important because it really makes these WhatsApp communities or digital communities feel like an extension of the parents' own communities, own local communities. I was actually visiting a couple of villages, last week, and I found one of these parents really motivating. Her name is Rani, and we just, then we had someone shoot a video, And we just wanted to share that with you very quickly.
स्मार्टफोन नहीं लिया था वह बच्चों के लिए काम आता है स्कूल से सब इसका भी आता है बेटी का बेटा का भी आता है दोनों का आता है इसलिए भी मैंने भी बहुत कुछ सीखा है देखो उसमें सब कुछ आता है इंग्लिश वगैरह नहीं आता पढ़ना तो वो भी आता है उसमें तो हम सीखते हैं अब मोबाइल है तो मोबाइल की वजह से बच्चा कुछ और अक्षर को ढंग से समझ लेता है पहले ये था कि कॉपी में काम दिया तो बस चले आते थे वो फिर हम भी थोड़ी ढील दे देते अब तो मोबाइल की वजह से हम भी थोड़ा देर और बैठ जाते हैं बच्चे के साथ कि कुछ सीख जाए
Thank you very much. And, champions like Ronnie are the reason we're here today. It's really nice hearing back from, your users like Afia Pamojo mentioned, right? It's important to get the feedback. And it's really nice to see that, these communities have transformed the lives of our parents, right? And there are currently 100,000 such communities that we're working with over 2 million children across 9 states in India. And what's really important is, I think what's really important is it's not just that we're reaching them or lives touched, it's the depth of impact that we're really excited about here, right? 90% of our children recognize numbers and can describe pictures by the age 6. This is just a point back to Utsav's deficit mentioned there, where 40 million children couldn't do this by the age of 12. So this is really, really exciting for us. And to build on top of that, those who engage regularly in rocket learning activities filter out to the top third of their class, and 85% of our cohort become school ready. Now, school readiness is an acceptable academic metric, which has actually been shown to have direct positive correlations with better income, lower school recidivism, and higher cognitive ability, even years down the line. So, echoing Richa's points on outsized value, I think early childhood education really has that for you. And it's happening in the right format. So what's really important is that this is causing behavior change in the way that you interact, in the way that you educate your children, right? So they're spending 2x the amount of time daily teaching their children, which is great validation for our theory of change. I think, what's our future path of scale look like, right? So I think, as I said, we're currently in 9 state partnerships across India, where the central government chosen partner, and we're really, really excited to scale this solution across all states in India and meet the school readiness needs of every child in India today, right? And what we're also keen on, and Nell graciously made a mention to, is sort of achieving this at the depth at scale, right? So basically, we understand that each child's unique needs requires us to leverage solutions like AI, ML to sort of enable them to sort of choose their own learning journey and learning path, right? So we've deployed a personalized development coach, right, that helps our students do this and have been funded by Google to sort of carry on this work going forward. And so we do all of this at a cost of £1 per child per year. So this brings into light a great opportunity that we have right now. An opportunity to be part of the winds of change and to transform the early childhood education landscape in India. We started 3.5 years ago with 5 co-founders, believe it or not, and and in one district, in one state. Right now, we're operating at a budget of over £2 million a year and a team of 250 people, right? So we're really excited about the future of the scale and impact that we can do. What we're hoping as a mid-stepping stone to our bigger goal of 30 million children by 2030 is that we reach 5 million children in 2025 and raise £5 million to do the same. And obviously, we'd really love to thank our partners, including 100X, who've been really catalytic in making us think bigger. So we're Rocket Learning, and we're ensuring that every child has a fair start in life, and love you to join us in this journey.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Utsav and Vishal. Up next, it's my great pleasure to introduce Jessica from Unlocked Labs. Unlocked Labs is on a mission to bring education to US prisons and to transform, to build a better justice system from the inside and out. And this phrase, from the inside and out, is not a tagline. It's really a true core tenet of how Unlocked Lab operates. And that's something we really admire at 100X. What makes Unlocked Labs truly exceptional is its founding journey and the way that it operates and composes its team. Jessica started Unlocked Labs while still incarcerated, teaching herself how to code with textbooks. And today, Unlocked Labs continues to employ people on the inside to contribute not only their skills, but also their intimate understanding of the problem to build the solution. And that is really something that makes a difference to getting it right. At 100X, we recognize and we celebrate their efforts to change the narrative and to change the mechanisms for rehabilitation, reintegration. We really believe in their model that starts with education and builds on to employment opportunities and data-led decisions being made in the justice system. And we see the way that this could really radically transform the way that justice is enacted and has knock-on effects on society. Finally, what we love about Unlocked Labs is that they're really not working in a silo. They're one of the most collaborative organizations that we've come across. Every time I meet them, they seem to have struck a new partnership. They are advocating this work at another event, and they're gaining traction. So honestly, every week is a growth week for Unlocked Labs. And their mentality is really, and their mindset is really to do the work with others and to figure it out with others. And we think this is the right way to do it. So please join me in welcoming Jessica to the stage.
You know, everybody who came up here before me, or several of the ventures, said, that's a hard act to follow. And for me, these are humble acts to follow. I look around and I'm in this room, and as I see our pictures over on the TV, I realize this is a room I was never supposed to be in a place I never was allowed to come. And so I'm honored to be here, and thank you for the time to listen to me and our work. At 16, I was sentenced to life without parole, locked away in the Potosi Correctional Center, Missouri's highest security prison. Other than a few cursory programs, I had no formal education or self-betterment opportunities, even when a 2012 Supreme Court case made me eligible for parole. While I was incarcerated, I was so frustrated with the lack of access to learning programs that I took matters into my own hands. We started with this, and these three, and so this was the learning program to begin with. The past few years, this is mostly what we've read. There's a couple others in here. There's a couple others in here. I began building a technology prototype to break down barriers to educational access. Having decades of lived experience with the problem, I found that my peers and I were uniquely qualified to design tools to solve the education disconnect. That is how Unlocked Labs began, a nonprofit with a mission to make sure that people behind bars have access to education and rehabilitation programs. By empowering current and formerly incarcerated technologists to leverage their lived experience, Unlocked Labs is building a better justice system from the inside out. My name is Jessica Hicklin. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Unlocked Labs. And what you just saw was the first part of my story, the part that is a norm for millions of incarcerated individuals everywhere. I'm from the United States, a country that has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prisoners, a country that spends $87 billion a year on mass incarceration. In the United States, 3 out of 5 incarcerated adults are functionally illiterate. 7 out of 10 do not have a high school diploma, and less than 6% have access to higher education. As an unsurprising result, 83% of those released from prison will be rearrested within 10 years. This does not have to be a reality, though. Research shows that by increasing access to education, we can nearly eliminate the likelihood of rearrest. You know, I've experienced this problem firsthand. I left prison after 26 years without a single formal education experience. I was so frustrated by this lack of access to education that I took matters into my own hands. I taught myself to code without the internet, and with my peers built Unlock Ed. Unlock Ed is an open source, comprehensive digital education platform designed specifically for corrections environments, with a focus on creating data-driven solutions to mass incarceration. To illustrate, let's take the story of Damien. Damien, an incarcerated learner, for Damien, an incarcerated learner, our open source technology enables a multitude of opportunities. Through Unlock Ed, Damien accesses college courses from Washington University, vocational training programs from Pluralsight, anger management programs from his mental health provider, and basic computer literacy from Google. While Damien accesses education, Unlock Ed quietly gathers data in the background, enabling him to validate his education experiences to paroling authorities and future employers. When Damien returns to the community, existing parole tracking systems will gauge his reentry success. By correlating with Unlock Ed's data, justice professionals can then refine education offerings to achieve maximum effectiveness. But what truly makes Unlock Ed so unique is that Damien's experience is shaped by justice-involved technologists that are just like him. Technologists who have a combined 2 centuries of experience living closest to the problem. We then partner these technologists with industry experts. For example, one of our team members has 15 years of experience leading engineering at Blackboard. Another one has successfully scaled multiple tech startups. Collectively, the Unlock Labs team has the experience necessary to make corrections evidence-based and data-driven. Through our unique approach, we can lean corrections back to its rehabilitative intent and reduce the prison population by 50% over the next 10 years. In the short term, we can have real impact today. By deploying Unlock Ed nationally, we can enable our nation's earned credit release laws that go largely underutilized. Through Unlock Ed, students can prove their program participation. These laws can be used to their fullest intent, and 350,000 individuals can be released immediately as a result. You know, I left prison 21 months ago, and now I'm part of the London School of Economics 100X Accelerator. The last time that happened, they made me cry, so. You know, my story is an anomaly, but it does not have to be. Unlock Labs has the opportunity to launch in 5 states next year. By taking this next step, we can prove out a national and even global model that can be replicated everywhere. Since getting out of prison in January of 2022, I have traveled around the country speaking to departments of corrections. I've been connecting with others who are formerly and currently incarcerated. I've received mentorship and am currently working with software developers from Google and Blackboard, all with the goal of creating an open source technology system adapted specifically for the correctional environment. We have been piloting this technology, learning what works while correcting what doesn't. I am determined to be part of the solution, but I can't do this alone. Help me build pathways back to successful reintegration to society, to the workforce. Together, we can prove that there is potential behind those walls, potential that deserves a second chance. We are currently raising $2 million to reach 5 states. From this philanthropy as catalyst model, we can prove to governments the cost and safety benefits of Unlock Lab solutions. Governments who will be willing to invest in that solution. I hope that you will join our community of supporters, and together, we can build a better justice system from the inside out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. We've come to our last presentation of the evening. It is such a privilege to introduce Manu and Safia to the stage. I forgot my intro. I think we can all be slightly worried about the headlines we're seeing about AI in the news currently. And we're realizing that regulators are playing catch up with the technology, and it's all not reassuring. But seeing organizations like Karya is really inspiring and deeply reassuring to see that some organizations are working to become a force for good in this space. Karya is doing two things incredibly well. On the one hand, it is attempting to lift people out of poverty by creating millions of jobs in the AI space through dignified work. And on the other, it is actually influencing the space to adopt more ethical labor practices. And if you get the chance to speak to the team afterwards, you'll quickly realize that the best thing about Karya is its people. They have an incredible team, not only in terms of talent, but also passion and complementary skill sets. Manu, who's acting as their CEO, was named one of the 100 most influential people by Times in AI by Times recently, and is just a great leader, one of the most inspiring and funny person that you'll meet. Their Chief Impact Officer, Safia, brings extensive experience in applied research and evaluations and has led collaborations in research for Karya with institutions such as JPAL and the World Bank, and she's actually been coaching others in the cohort on research and evaluations. And their CTO, Vivek, has a PhD from Carnegie Mellon in computer science and actually met Manu at Microsoft Research, where he was leading some of this work. And together, they are scaling Karya's work incredibly fast. In just 2 years, they have managed to partner with and advise leading tech names. And they have managed to distribute 0.8 million in wealth, with another 3 million planned for the next few months in signed contracts. And they have established themselves as an authority in the AI space in terms of ethical labor practices. Organizations are actually calling them up and asking for advice because it doesn't exist yet, and they're the ones who are paving the way forward. At 100X, we really buy into their vision that this new wave of AI transformation can be utilized for good. And we believe that Karya is the organization that can lead this change for better. Please join me in welcoming Manu and Safia to the stage.
Hi, my name is Manu.
And my name is Safia. And my mic doesn't work.
Her name is Safia. And we are the co-founders of Karya.
पिले भल पाठ पढ़तु पिले केमती दी पैसा रोजगार करतु तांको खुशी रे आमे खुशी आ चेन पिंदिया बयस नै आमे कारीगर पैसा रे अभाव रे तांको भल पाठ पढ़ाई परिलु जव ग्रहण संभवर उत्सव ग्रहण संभवर सेडा बहुत भल लागला मनटा भी बहुत फ्री लागला केते बेले टिके मन बोर रहिले काम फाम करला बेले टिके 9-10 राति परे जाइकी टिके फांका टाइम रे बसिकी टिके गपे आशा रखिची मो नातुणी टिके केंदी भल रे टिके पाठ पढेबी आ प्राइवेट स्कूल रे पढेबी सी केंदी गोटे दुनिया रे भल मनीष हो आगु करबा पई बहुत आग्रह बढ़िबो एते परिश्रम करके पैसा नि गपी गपी की टिके पैसा नि सेतरे तो बहुत खुशी लागियो
Thank you, everyone. So, Karya is a Sanskrit word for work that gives you dignity. And that is exactly what we are trying to do. At Karya, we are offering economically disadvantaged Indians a pathway out of poverty by giving them dignified and AI-enabled solutions to earn, learn, and grow.
Today, India has 230 million poor people. That's more than any other country in the world. It takes an average poor person in India today 7 generations of labor to make $1,500 in savings. The economic threshold considered as middle class in India. That means that the average poor person in India has to work for 200 years just to enter the middle class. This is obviously ridiculous. At the same time, big tech companies are spending over $100 billion every year collecting training data for their AI and ML models.
But what if we could change that entire equation? What if we could bring this billion-dollar industry directly to the 230 million poor people that are desperately in need of flexible and remote work? Unfortunately, today, an ethical way to do this doesn't exist. In the global data industry, many people in the global south are making as little as 30 cents per hour. 30 cents. That's not even enough to buy a stick of gum, and yet we are expecting people to live on this. This is especially unacceptable in an industry worth billions and billions of dollars. So what does this fundamentally mean? Well, it means we have an unjust market. AI is an unjust labor market. It is a market where you have a billion-dollar industry leading to data sets worth hundreds of dollars, all on the backs of people making pennies every hour. This is unacceptable. But thankfully, we have an opportunity for a win-win. What if we could actually fix this labor market and use that to create pathways out of poverty for those that need it most? That is where Karya comes in.
Karya generates high-quality speech, image, video, and text data sets by employing communities in rural India. By paying our workers the highest wages in the global data market, we pay them 50 times the industry standard. By redirecting the vast majority of client revenue back to our workers, and by investing in them, beyond just giving them work, we are building the world's foremost ethical AI data company. Over the last 1 year, we have worked with for-profit companies like Microsoft, Google, Tesla. We work with nonprofits like USAID and the Gates Foundation. We work extensively with the government and academic institutes.
At Karya, we have a three-step ecosystem: earn, learn, and grow. And today, we're going to focus on talking to you about Karya Earn, our digital work platform.
So let me give you an example, because at this point in presentation, people are usually like, so wait, what do they do exactly? And that's what I want to answer. So let's say Google wants to build a language model in Marathi. India has over 19,000 unique languages. Marathi is just one of them. And say Google wants to build a language model in Marathi. They will reach out to Karya and say, hey, can I get 100,000 hours of speech data in Marathi? We will take Google's big digital task and break it into micro tasks. We will then distribute these micro tasks to our workers in rural India who do them on their phones. The task being as simple as reading their mother tongue on their phone and recording their voice. For the simple task, we pay our workers 20 times the Indian minimum wage. Workers like Reshma. Reshma's community had no internet, and this was her very first time using a smartphone. Despite that, with just a few minutes of training, she figured it out. She was able to do the work. In her first week at Karya, Reshma made more money than her family had made all of the previous year. Our high wage rate enabled Reshma to leave her village, and she became the first girl from her community to go to college.
At Karya, we're fundamentally changing the way that AI data sets are being created. Our data sets are fundamentally worker-owned. That means that every time a data set is resold, our workers make royalties. Our platform has been built on 5 years of peer-reviewed research. Our models are completely open source, and all of our work requires absolutely no internet. In the past year and a half, we've been able to achieve some amazing scale. 40 million digital tasks have been completed on our platform, and we've been able to employ over 32,000 workers across these 22 states in India. This scale would not have been made possible without our incredible partners and clients, of which this 100x Accelerator has been one of the most pivotal. At Karya, we have a founding team that has a wealth of experience, and it's what brings us here today. For us, Karya is deeply personal. I'm our Chief Impact Officer, and I grew up as the child of 2 humanitarian workers. Because of this, I saw firsthand a lot of the gravest problems that people face today. I was also able to see the transformational power that local communities can have when they work together. And that's why I'm here today, to solve this challenge.
And I grew up in one of the poorest corners of Delhi, a low-income neighborhood called Shakur Basti. Growing up, I saw the debilitating effects of poverty firsthand. I got very lucky. I got a series of scholarships that took me from my community to Stanford. But my story is unfortunately not normal. With Karya, we have the power to change that. Today, a Karya worker can reach that same economic threshold of $1,500 in less than 1 year. That means that a Karya worker can go from extreme poverty to middle class in just a few months. Millions of rural Indians today have access to a smartphone and a bank account. That's a very happy picture from one of our village field visits. And despite the fact that millions of Indians have access to a smartphone and a bank account, rural India remains among the poorest corners of the world. We want to fix this. We want to dramatically accelerate social mobility in rural India using technology. This has been an amazing year for us, and this is actually our first full year as a company, which is so exciting. And we have worked with some of the most important players in the AI revolution. And just a few months ago, we were on the cover of the Time magazine for our work in using AI to put people on a pathway out of poverty. Today, we are raising $10 million to scale our tech and operations and to enable us to put 100 million people out of poverty by 2030.
Let's get started today.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, it's my great honor to introduce a key partner to this extraordinary enterprise. That is Tom Hall from UBS Optimus. You've heard me talk earlier on about this thing I call the impact economy. Now you're going to hear some detail from someone who is building the impact economy. Tom.
Where's the clicker?
I'll get you the clicker.
Thank you.
Who's got the clicker? Got the clicker.
There we go. Thank you very much, Stefan. I think I should be thanking you for asking me to do the keynote tonight, but I didn't realize it was going to be the keynote after 8 other keynotes before drinks. Maybe it was your idea to make banks more popular, but I'm not sure it's going to work. You might be wondering, why has LSE and 100X asked UBS, which isn't to be confused with well-known parcel service or a memory stick, but the world's largest wealth manager with over 1 million clients, to give a keynote on the impact economy? And the answer is, of course, in part because we're giving LSE money, and we are happy to do so. But I think the other reason we've been invited to speak is because we do actually service almost 1 million high net worth individuals around the world. And what our clients tell us, 95% in fact, that they want to use their wealth to address some of the pressing social and environmental problems the world's facing. I take great hope from that. Now, I think we've actually let all the entrepreneurs do a lot of work this evening, and it's time for the audience to do a little bit of work. So what I want to ask you guys is, are you optimistic? Do you think we can solve these big global issues? So we're going to play a game, and this is a game I play all over the world. The last place I played this was in Nashville, so high standards of competition that you need to try and beat. And to play this game, you all need to stand up. So please stand up. Bear with me. Okay. So you are going to answer these 3 questions. And this game is well known. It's called heads, shoulders, and tails. And what you have to do is answer the questions. Now, I've made it easy for you. These questions, you can read them yourselves. There's 3 of them. If you think the answers to them are predominantly heads, put your hand on your head. Okay? If you think the answers to these 3 questions is predominantly shoulders, put your hands on your shoulders. And if you think the answers to these 3 questions is predominantly tails, you go for tails like this. Simple? Right. Pick now, and everybody has to pick. Heads, if you think mostly it's on this side, the answers. Shoulders, if you think shoulders. And tails, if you think tails. Anyone going for heads? Shoulders, tails. Okay. Everyone picked? No cheating? I feel like there's some cheating. Hands in pockets isn't an option. Just saying. Yeah, got it? Everyone's picked? Right. If you do not have your hands, you can't cheat and double count there, Stefan. That is really not allowed. On your tails, please sit down. Tails, if you're like this. Stay standing if you're tails. Anyone who's not tails, sit down. How's our tails? Where have we got some tails? Okay. Big congratulations to the people in the room who, as you can notice, have picked the most optimistic category. Stay standing, tails, because we're going to give you a round of applause. What you want to know is that these optimistic few here have beaten the monkeys who, when randomly answering the survey, always beat humans. Because typically, humans are very pessimistic about the state of the world. Sit down now, please, tails. Well done. Give them a round of applause. And the reason I like to start with that, ladies and gentlemen, is because we do tend to be pessimistic. But the truth is what is the date? 28th of November, 2023, is the best day in human history to be born. You are more likely to survive childbirth. You are more likely to get an education that can give you a pathway to prosperity. Maybe to come to the LSE, or dare I say, even work for a bank, God forbid. Right? I don't mean to be trite. That's not to say there are not huge issues that we still need to address. But I hope this does give you hope that it's possible. That it's been built on the back of many years, decades, maybe even centuries of investments from philanthropists and governments that have got us to this point. But the other truth is, if we really want to scale and solve some of the big social and environmental problems the world's facing, we're going to have to think differently. We're going to have to think radically. We're actually going to have to accelerate a transition to what we're calling the impact economy. What does that mean? That means we need to change the way we account for what matters. We need to not simply count outputs and activities and GDP. We need to value the actual economic and social contribution that people make to our societies, and that safeguarding the planet means in all investment decisions. And if we can do this, if we can unleash an impact economy, and obviously I believe we can, we believe we can unlock the financing to fund the Sustainable Development Goals. This is already happening in some dimensions. Clean energy, it's already investable. It's already happening at scale. We've heard so much about education today. 500 million young people can't read or do basic maths around the world. We have work to do that. But if we can, that will enable them to get 380 million new jobs and add 12 trillion to the global economy. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is not just about doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. It's about building a world that's genuinely more profitable and prosperous for all of us. The frustrating thing is, and I think we heard some frustration in the excellent presentations earlier, and this is something I've shared in the 20 years that I've been working in this space, is that the capital and the revenue and the desire to drive impact already exists in our economy. Now, there's $103 trillion in the wealth management industry alone, 81% of which says it wants to have impact alongside its investments. Governments, we heard 10 trillion earlier. My researchers suggest it's more like 32 trillion spent each and every year by governments around the world. And as a minister of a well-known West African country was telling me recently, they've been spending money on their education system on activities, on outputs, like printing textbooks. And the textbooks sometimes didn't even arrive at the schools. So was it any wonder that no children had learned any more on average in the last 20 years? Philanthropists have an issue too. Philanthropy is growing exponentially. It's going to be, Forbes estimate, at 10 trillion by the mid-2030s. That is a big number. But for those of you who are quick at maths, we'll see 10 trillion is not the 30 we need to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. So philanthropy cannot give its way out of the issue. We cannot give everyone a free education or free healthcare. We have to find sustainable pathways. We have to catalyze investable pathways to solve these issues. And that's where impact investing can come in. But there's a problem there. There's only about $1 trillion today invested for impact. The impact economy is about fixing this. It's about bringing all of these partners together and searching for those opportunities that can genuinely drive impact alongside financial return. Right? Why? So we make money? No. So we can recycle and reuse that capital. But it's not just about partnerships for the allocators of capital. It's also about partnerships across civil society, which is why what's happening here at 100X is so essential. The role of academic institutions to bring people together, particularly from local communities who've lived and experienced what it means to solve these issues, is critical. Partnerships that genuinely create a world that's more profitable for for people and planet. And it's already happening. We just need to accelerate. Let me just give you a few examples that have excited me in the last year. Partnerships that correct market failure. Maybe, again, just a show of hands. Who in this room went to university? Yeah, I think most of us would probably agree that that was a pretty critical component to our own success. And the same is true for people from emerging markets, from young women in Africa, someone like Rwanda. If she can get, not just go to university, get a 6-month coding course, she'll increase her annual income by 10 times. 10 times. Again, those of you who went to uni, raise your hands if you had to take a student loan. Anyone wants to take a student loan? Well, if you're lucky enough to be sitting next to someone who didn't, that's who you need to network with afterwards, because they've got a trust fund. Those of you who took a student loan, did any of you pay more than 20% APR on it? Okay. Is it any wonder then as to why we've not unlocked the potential of hundreds of thousands, tens of millions of young people, if their only option, if they're not lucky enough to be 1 in a million to get a scholarship, is that they have to take 40% APR on a student loan? It's not. This is fixable, and we're seeing it be fixed through partnerships, through philanthropic capital, partnering with investment capital, instruments like blended finance, where philanthropy lends to these young women, says, we think you're a great credit risk. We're going to take a first loss position on you. But by doing so, they crowd in investment capital, not at 40%, but at 4%. Through an innovative income share agreement, again, partnering with academic institutions who actually agree to take 20% of any losses so that they also have skin in the game, make sure those students get the right courses that leads to the kind of education and entrepreneurship that we need. And this is just one example, $22 million. Invest, I've turned off the whole thing, that was clever. Invest in 10,000 students. And the track record of these income share agreements is those 10,000 students will repay all of that financing, and the philanthropists themselves will get about a 9% return. Reuse that money. And they'll go on to add $700 million to their local economies. Now, when we talk about impact unicorns, these kind of blended finance ideas are impact unicorns in and of themselves. It would take $60 trillion to provide a scholarship to every single young person who deserves one. It would only take $500 billion to finance the education of that 600 million students who deserve it. And they would go on to add about $1.2 trillion to their global economy, and that $500 billion would be recycled and reused again and again and again. The other thing that we need to do, though, if we're really going to scale an impact economy, is we desperately need impact transparency. We've heard it many, many times today. I've worked with over 3,000 families in my career, philanthropists who give away huge sums of money, who've never made an impact investment. Why? Because they don't trust the data. We desperately need to create a standardized bond rating for impact that's really easy to understand, that can be applied to any grant or investment, that tells us what we need to know. And what do we need to know? I took my daughter Felicity yesterday to the doctor. She was prescribed an inhaler. There is no way on God's green earth I would give her that inhaler if it hadn't been through a clinical trial, a randomized control trial. It's proven to have worked. Yet, in so many parts of this world, even in developed markets, we test things on our kids, particularly in things like education, that have no data that they worked. Happily, you'll have noticed that so many of the presentations today talked about data and its critical nature of knowing that A causes B. We also need to know who is being impacted. Is it happening on those who are most affected by inequality? Because if it's not, we're not going to realize these huge benefits from an impact economy. The $1 trillion that is currently invested in impact investing today, 90% is in developed markets. Now, of course, there's issues in developed markets, but we need to radically shift more capital into emerging markets and at scale. But the other really cool thing that happens in an impact economy, if you can measure data properly, is you can then prove impact, and impact has real economic value as well as social value that can be paid for. We've already started to see that. And I liken this to the idea of impact-adjusted returns. Businesses that maybe make revenue in one way that can also gain more revenue for their impact. Maybe not today, but in the future. I'll give you one example where investors are being agreed to being paid in impact. The World Bank issued a bond recently, $250 million. And the investors agreed to be paid in cash and, if the impact was proven through a randomized control trial, in rhinos. The rhinos weren't delivered through Amazon, they stay in Tanzania. But I love this idea. How many more investors out there, how many of us would be willing to be paid in pounds and trees? Or recidivism, you know, unleashing the potential of people who have been incarcerated, right? Like we'd agree to do that for a small marginal reduction in our return. We can see consumers and businesses paying for impact. The carbon market is already a $200 billion industry, paying for impact in carbon. We heard a fantastic example of that today where smallholder farmers are willing to essentially pay for data, paying for impact. But the biggest audience to pay for impact, the most important, we've heard it, all roads to scale lead through government, is the role of government. And again, just a quick straw poll. Raise your hand if, in the country you're from, you think that your government usually spends money on the right things, the best, most evidence-based things. Where are you from, sir? Norway. Fantastic. That's a new one to the collection. Normally it's Singapore, but you know, we can take Norway. We asked the US government this question. How much of the $1 trillion they spend each and every year on things like health and social care is on that higher standard of evidence? This is the percentage they came back with. Yet, what we've seen time and time again, like the minister from the West African country told me, he's no longer spending money on outputs like textbooks that are being printed. He is now only spending $68 per child per year if impact is delivered, as audited by KPMG in a randomized control trial. Outcomes purchasing. And this is hugely scalable. It's better for the taxpayer, it's better for politicians who want to be elected, and that is why we're seeing Accelerate. Again and again, through outcomes purchasing. We've seen 6,000 young women in India's lives saved. US government paying for the result of a clean and well-run hospital. 200,000 children learning 2.5 times faster than the control group. 4 different types of educational intervention, like the ones we've heard today. Both of these capitalized with risk capital that got a 9% return. Using money, recycling it, driving impact. It's what we all want, and we want to scale it. Again, applying blended finance instruments. We are taking this to scale. $20 million of philanthropy, underwriting the risk so investors for the first time can invest in those instruments in West Africa that I talked about, outcomes contracts there. That 100 million, with all of these different partners working together, should do about 15 contracts, impacting 5 million children in the next 8 years, and pay a 5.5% return. It's still small, right? Let's be honest. It's still the green shoots of the impact economy. But we believe that there is a market for $1 trillion of outcomes purchasing by the end of the decade. But we have to make it happen. And the way that we're going to make it happen is we're going to partner. We need to ideate. Maybe the LSE can lead on this, on what the political institutions need to look like to manage government outcomes purchasing at scale. We outsourced monetary policy to the Bank of England and the Fed 30 years ago. I think that's worked pretty well. And those of us who were looking at Liz Truss last year think that was definitely a great idea. Now, we need to think about how we can do that at scale, right? And this is already happening. Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, starting to set up the institutions to manage the payment of outcomes at scale. Why is this so important? Because I've been working in this space for 20 years, and the thing that breaks my heart more than anything is seeing amazing entrepreneurs like we've heard from today set up something amazing that's delivering impact, and it cannot scale. The scaling pathway is here, ladies and gentlemen. It's here, and it's there for amazing entrepreneurs like this to go to. And that is why partnerships, like what we're seeing now with the 100x Accelerator that's searching for the impact unicorns of the future, are of their time. They are so important and critical. And that's why we are so delighted and wholeheartedly willing to put our tiny bit of capital as follow-on funding, to not just do the additional grant capital, but start to do some of this more social finance-based money, recycling capital, to help people get ready for scale. But we've also are working on a $1 billion pipeline of blended finance initiatives that will hopefully take these to the next scale, that we can bring, as Jerome was saying, the diversity needed to the sector so that we can really believe that this market will go to scale. Now, one of my favorite quotes from a philanthropist from an impact unicorn of the last decade, the End Fund, a founder who you probably wouldn't have known the name of. I love what he said, because he said, if you want your impact unicorn that you're seeding to go to scale, take your name off it. And I think it would be remiss of us not to honor a leadership position and something that I think is a word that isn't used enough, but should be used more in philanthropy, which is humility, which is Sir Paul, and the incredible gift he's made for this 100x Accelerator to start and flourish. And actually, I think a round of applause is due there, genuinely. And I'd like to see many, many more philanthropists in many different countries around the world follow suit and set up accelerators and blend funds. In fact, I think we're looking to replicate this in other contexts. And UBS is here to partner with you. So if you want to co-fund as a philanthropist with 100x Accelerator, we'll add 10% match to what you're doing too. If you want to pool money into blended finance vehicles, we'll add money to that too. We want to come alongside people who want to build the impact economy. One of my other favorite quotes is from Bill Gates, and what he says is that we tend to massively overestimate what we will achieve in a year. I think we thought we'd have launched about 6 months ago, right?
Yep.
But we tend to underestimate what we're going to achieve in a decade. After watching today's presentations, my God, am I excited to see what's going to happen in 10 years' time. Thank you very much.
I don't want to steal all his best lines, but hands up who would vote for Tom. Those who have been or are students here at the Marshall Institute will know that I'm given to saying that I have 2 favorite days a year. One is when our students arrive, and the other is when they graduate. I'm afraid those 2 favorite days have been knocked off the top spot by this. Apologies. This is now officially my favorite day of the year. I think it's absolutely extraordinary that we have gone from an idea and half a person to this event in 2 years. And I think it's an extraordinary testament to everyone in this room, and I will come on to thank them specifically in a second. I agree with Tom about the need to be positive and hopeful and optimistic. But I also think that we need to recognize that the kinds of things we're doing, the kinds of things you're doing, are hard. This is hard, complicated stuff where the route to the answer isn't linear. Okay, it's going to take lots of experiments. Some of those experiments are going to fail. And we have to, as somebody said, we have to honor the question while we're trying to develop the answers. And that's an extraordinarily difficult balance. And the thing that's impressed me most today is that every single person we've heard from has been kind of ambidextrous or amphibious. They've been really serious about the problem and really serious about the necessary humility that you show in the face of that problem. But they've also been extraordinarily focused and ambitious and positive and driven and resource collecting and all the things that we care about when we care about entrepreneurs. So that's been kind of super important to me. I learned a bunch of stuff from you all today, one of which is that we've chosen pretty well, I think. I think that the hard work that Fan and her team did, and the hard work that the investment committee did, and the hard work that Nell's done in programming and cajoling and improving, even the hard work I've done by saying, I don't believe you, go tell me again. It's worked. It's worked. I'm super proud of that. I've learned that creating a culture that is supportive rather than competitive within the cohort. Okay? I've been and looked at quite a lot of accelerators, and most of them, a bit like most MBA programs, are kind of zero-sum places where I win if you lose. Okay? What's remarkable about you all is that you all win if you all win. And the amount of support that you've given each other, and I suspect will continue to give to each other, and I suspect will give to your successor cohorts, is kind of remarkable. I mean, that's just a remarkable resource, and I commend you for it. And the other thing I've learned is that we shouldn't underestimate just how lonely and tough being an entrepreneur is when you're working in environments which are problematic. They're difficult, it can be lonely, and this 100x experiment is also an experiment in providing recognition and support and encouragement to those people doing hard and lonely work. So I think those three things are worth hanging on to as principles. So since I know that the only thing standing between you all and drinks is me, I've skipped a whole page of other blethering to go straight to the thanks bit, okay? And this is important, and I've actually written it down so that I don't garble it and get it wrong, because none of this could have happened today without a whole bunch of people. And I don't want you to clap for everyone, but I do want you to clap for the first person, because the presiding genius of the program of 100x is sitting over there, and I think Nell deserves applause. And then I'm going to read out a series of names. These people are incredibly important. Some of you will know some of them. Most of you won't know all of them, but I do. Agre, Carl, Kaylee, Kerry, Amelia, Ishan, Karina, Emma, and Julia. By my reckoning, they've lost an aggregate of about a month's sleep. Okay, so they deserve our thanks. Everyone in the front 2 rows here, you've had applause today. You should have more. You were amazing, and I'm very, very proud of you. Fan and her investment committee colleagues, I hope you got a sense just from listening to the quality and level of that conversation that those people are very, very serious and very smart, and they work incredibly hard to help us build this impact economy, and I'm very grateful to them. We'll hold your applause for the end now, otherwise you'll get exhausted. Our academic colleagues, I mean, there's been a lot of reference today to the fact that this is happening here, and it's important that this happens here. And we get an enormous amount of support from an enormous range of people, many of whom you don't know and won't know, but they're our colleagues who help us, and they're our students who help us, and it's remarkable. Very few startups get to partner with an established market leader in the impact economy. So it is one of the pieces of extraordinary good fortune that we partner with UBS, Optimus, and with Tom and his colleagues, from whom we learn all the time, including today. It's been said already, but I'm going to say it again. Without Paul Marshall, this vision would have gone no further than my head, and we are very grateful. It's not normal for universities to run experiments like 100x. Okay? Universities usually say, look, we do teaching and we do research, and it would be quite nice if we had more money than we have, but let's not do anything too speculative. The fact that this institution said to me and to Paul, yeah, that sounds right. That sounds consistent with our mission. It sounds consistent with our values. It sounds consistent with the effect we want to have on the world and the impact of our own knowledge, I think is an extraordinary testament to the institution that we're in, and I'm enormously grateful for that. The first director of 100x did so much to shape the vision you've seen embodied today, so thank you, Leslie. All the LSE team in the Marshall Building, and that includes the estates team and the catering team and the student volunteers and everyone who's helped us today, as well as all my colleagues from the 9th floor Marshall Institute. It is one of the proudest things that I've done in my life to have got this institute and this accelerator from nothing to something, and for that something to be potentially very consequential. So there's time now for us to meet and mingle and drink for those who do. So thank you.